Welcome back to Derailed. I'm your host, JJ Lahey, here with my good friend, Jake Schyvinck. Jake, you ready to break down a pretty convincing Packers victory, 38-10 over the hapless, wounded, but still pretty annoying San Francisco 49ers?
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Yeah, I mean, just about as good as it could have gone, honestly. And yeah, we'll get into a lot of it. It felt like the win was more expected once the injury report came out for San Francisco. But nonetheless, still feels good to win that convincingly against that team.
Yeah, I think I have and also had, as soon as the game ended, more thoughts, post-game thoughts about this game than any other this season. And really spent a lot of time going back, rewatching stuff. And like, this was one where I really had to look at the play-by-play over and over again because it just never lined up with what my recollection was of the game. The big question that I'm kind of hoping we can dive into here is how much of what we saw was good Packers versus bad 49ers. Because obviously that's going to help us decide what we should expect going forward, especially this week against the Dolphins. Short turnaround against a very different team than what we just played, with very different strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from the fact that this was the biggest margin of victory by either team in this rivalry. And a lot of the guys really played well. There were some dudes, Rasheed Walker, for instance, I thought had a phenomenal game. Really impressed by him. I liked what Tucker Kraft did. I thought Devontae Wyatt had a pretty nice game. Obviously, we've all seen Quay Walker's PFF grade at this point, like 91 or something. Just easily one of the best games he's had as a Packer. Really love to see that. And then I thought that there was a lot of kind of meh and questionable stuff as well. And one of the big things is that I would like to get your thoughts on, Jake, are, so, there were, 5 total turnovers by the 49ers. They had the 2 turnovers on downs. Obviously, I think the last one kind of doesn't count as much because it was garbage time at that point.
Yeah, that's fair.
But 4 turnovers when the game, was still kind of in the balance. And the Packers scored touchdowns off of 3 of those. So that was obviously huge. If you took those 3 touchdowns away, then there's just a 1 touchdown gap between the 2 teams. So clearly the way the defense came up clutch when it really mattered was the difference maker in this game. I felt like the offense was just inconsistent. There were some moments where it was really good. Obviously some moments where it was just things were not working. And to me, if the defense hadn't kind of, nutted up in all the right moments and gotten those turnovers when it really mattered, I think this is a really different looking game.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, a heck of a performance for the defense. I think the defense and the running game both forgot that the bye week, they were a couple weeks removed from the bye week. That was good to see, right? It kind of felt like things were on schedule. Again, when this Packers defense creates turnovers, it is, for the opposing team, it's trying to stop a barrage of bullets coming at you, or a fury of punches. It's just and not to mention the red zone offense this past week, major improvements there. Again, part of it was the run game for sure, but it just feels like they had stuff dialed up a lot better. They felt like they were getting it felt more comfortable, the looks they were getting and just how they executed. But yeah, the defense McKinney's back on it, right? Strip sack, and then obviously the forced fumble on McCaffrey, which, man, Nixon, it's
Heck
good
of a
to
play
hear.
by Keyshawn.
Yeah, that is insane play. Welcome back. Great to see making a big time play there. Like, if they're going to make a run down the stretch, like Keyshawn Nixon, whether you like him or not, is going to have to do a couple things like that in big games. So, yeah, defensively excellent. I saw some stuff on the pass rush win rate for Gary and Van Ness the last couple weeks. Very, very encouraging stuff there. And you mentioned Wyatt, which Wyatt's pretty much at this point, JJ, not really a slight to Brooks, who just seems to be more like solid and less disruptive. But Wyatt's going to carry that interior. And we kind of, I think, knew that after a month or so of the season, or at least we're believing that was going to be the case. He's going to have to do that consistently down the stretch. He's going to have to carry that interior. But yeah, Quay, I mean, goodness sakes. It was just like he was seeing things well. And, that's something where, again, it could be a flash in the pan. It really, really could. But at the same time, I think everybody coming in when he was drafted, no matter if you're you're kind of like, you're an optimist or you're a pessimist, either way, you're kind of like, okay, this is a project. This is a lot of athletic tools. He's going to have to consistently work on like what he's seeing, or if they're going to play him off the ball, he needs to be able to, recognize things, drop into right zones and coverage, read quarterback's eyes. Like, he's going to have to get better at the processing part of the football game. And you saw it in spurts and coverage last year. And then Green Bay goes, okay, now we're going to have him play Mike now. So, for a guy who came out at 21, 23 years oldish now, I think, and, him just seeming like he's seeing things, and it's when he sees things, he has the speed, he has the power, he's going to be able to be disruptive. That was huge. And again, it could be a flash in the pan. It really could. But for a very, very, very young player who, again, didn't really play out of the mic in college at Georgia, right? That was Nakobe Dean's job. Was playing off the ball really for the most part his first two seasons. That was a big deal. But yeah, defense, tremendous work. But the defense, yeah, they're gonna have their hands full this week. This is not Brandon Allen walking in there, who also hurt his finger during the game. It's not going to be that.
I thought he hurt his finger a week or two ago.
Oh, it was? Oh, I thought they taped it. Maybe they taped it up again after the strip sack or something.
I think they retaped it after the strip sack.
Okay.
Because we had heard that his hand was hurting before the game.
Okay. So, yeah, just kind of maybe not a re-injuring, but just kind of, a little banged up, felt it a little bit more. But, yeah, that was – it's just not going to be – we're not going to see the same thing. But it's good to see the defense just showing up. Like, that is – it's very helpful when the offense, as you said, is kind of very much riding high highs and low lows, to have a defense who can show up and create turnovers like that.
Yeah, to your point about Carl Brooks versus Devontae Wyatt, the biggest difference between those two guys, obviously besides size difference, is the athleticism too. Like, Devontae Wyatt is a freak of nature.
Yes.
I would like to remember to look up sometime if we can find who the fastest D linemen in the NFL are, because Wyatt has to have some of the highest miles per hours of any D lineman in the NFL. But Brooks is, I think, pretty darn technically sound, and his performances, I think, lean a lot more on being at the right place at the right time, whereas Wyatt has the speed to kind of make up the difference sometimes. And to your point, just his highs are going to be higher than Brooks's are, even though I love Brooks. Having both these guys on the team, though, makes me so freaking happy. I mean, those two guys and Enagbare were three defenders who I had massive and Van Ness, although we're still waiting for him to really be a full-time contributor here. but those three guys were guys that I had just massive draft crushes on, and was just thrilled to get each one of them in Green Bay. And all of them went later in the draft than I thought they were. Wyatt was like 8 or 9 or 10 picks later than I thought he was going to be, and then Brooks and Enigbari were multiple rounds earlier than I thought. We have a
really quick.
Garrett Stutzel mentioned in the chat. Go ahead.
Really quick, just because I want to show this. Like, I know Jordan Davis was like the man. Like, we were talking about him because of how big he was and how athletic he was. Which kind of glossed over like all of the athletes that Georgia had in this class. But like, Wyatt was an elite athlete, no doubt about it. Like, you're looking at the comparison to Quinnen Williams, who came out in the draft 3 years earlier. Like, this is he is insane athletically, right? The 10 split, the 20, the 3 cone is really nice. The broad jump is like it is very, very impressive what he did at the combine and what you saw athletically on film from him at Georgia that you go, yeah, this makes sense totally. Like, they need this. I don't think anybody was questioning the Wyatt pick of those 2 first-round picks in 22. It was more about the, oh, wow, Quay Walker, this is a late kind of riser type of thing. But, yeah, Wyatt was like, yes, this guy in this class, like, should have been talked about a lot more. And yeah, got him at 28, which, yeah, heck yeah. And the high highs, like you said, are impressive.
Yeah, so the the last podcast that I did before that 2022 draft, I saw somebody had Quay Walker mocked to the Packers in the 2nd round, and I laughed on the podcast and said, "Oh man, he's my number 100 player in this draft." So he ends up being our first round pick that Thursday. And I'm like sick to my stomach because I'm like, I can't believe Devontae Wyatt is still here at our first round pick. And now we're not even taking him. And we're also not taking, Jermaine Johnson. We're not taking who else was there that I wanted? George Pickens. Like, I think that was George Pickens' draft. Like, there's all these guys who I wanted with that pick. So then our second first round pick comes around, and I'm like, please just take Devontae Wyatt and all will be forgiven. I don't care if we don't get anything from Quay Walker. Give me Devontae Wyatt. Yeah.
I remember that because I there was all that late talk. I don't know if you remember the late talk, like leading in that Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was kind of like, okay, so we're hearing Quay Walker's potentially gonna be a first round pick, and it didn't dawn on me that it could be Green Bay, and it should have. But, like, it didn't dawn on me that Green Bay would do that because, they've kind of – they've strayed away from that for quite some time, right, in terms of taking linebacker round 1. And so, like, I'm trying to go through my head, like, Jacksonville, who ended up taking Lloyd in the first to move up. Tennessee, like, who's going to do it? Just didn't dawn on me that it was going to be Green Bay. A little shocking. But I do remember kind of watching him a little bit more that day and kind of, like – because of all that buzz. And I'm like, I'll watch him that day. We'll see, just am I missing anything? Why is he, kind of being a first-round pick? But, yeah, very shocking there. But also, that's the roller coaster of the draft sometimes, truly, with the Georgia defenders.
You do occasionally hear really kind of last minute before. Oh, what the heck happened to my camera? Can you see my face?
I cannot.
You can hear me.
I thought
though,
you
right?
did. I can hear you. Yes, loud and clear. Yep.
I'll finish my point and then I will. I'll refresh my page and hopefully get my camera back.
Can get to some of the comments, but yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. Okay.
Of course. Thanks, camera. Thanks for showing.
Yeah. This was the Quay stuff, Adam. Yeah, was very much like right up until it was kind of like, it's like this might happen to like it's going to happen.
Yeah. So then the Lucas Van Ness year, 2023.
Yeah.
We started hearing super late that like Keon White might be a first round pick. He ended up being a second round pick to the Patriots.
I do think they would have picked him if Van Ness was gone. I truly think they were going to pick him.
I don't think
Yes.
that they thought Lucas Van Ness was going to be there.
Correct.
And they were going to take Keon White. If I
Yes.
ever meet Brian Gutekunst, I'm going to ask him.
I 100% think that's going
to
down. There's
take Keon White first round
Toolsy,
2023.
big defensive lineman. He's going in the first round. That's all I could think
Went to
about
Georgia
for
Tech,
48.
didn't he?
Yeah. For 48 hours, I'm like, I know who this is. They're not fooling me. I know who wants him. Like, come on.
And he's having a good sophomore
Yes.
year too.
Yes.
He's plus 10% pressure rate. He's got 38 pressures on 316 pass rush attempts this year. He's playing good.
It's
got an overall defensive grade of 75.3, but there's some really high games mixed in there. Like he was at 90.3 in week 1, the 90.8 pass rush grade.
Yeah.
He was pretty high up. I think I had him as my either second or third highest graded edge rusher in that class. I know I had LVN number 1. I think there was somebody in between LVN and
Anderson.
maybe it was Will Anderson. Might have been
I would
Will Anderson. I think
probably.
it was LVN, Will Anderson, then Keon White.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like thinking like, oh yeah, Green Bay could do that. Go to Keon White. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, if it's one of these edge guys, it's gonna be Van Ness, it's gonna be White, or it's gonna be Miles Murphy. And
Oh, I hated Miles Murphy.
yeah, I was very
Hated
concerned
the
they
passion.
I was very concerned they were gonna do that. Very, very concerned about that. Yeah, that was a very uncomfortable
How's he
final
been
3
doing, by the way?
days. It's not
Did he
great.
go to Cincinnati?
Yes, he did.
And he's been horrible.
Yeah, it's not been good.
Oh, he's been
It is-
bad.
It's not been good. At least according to PFF, but pretty much everywhere is probably going to have.
He's only played 180 snaps so far this year.
Which, yeah, I mean, I think Hubbard's been hurt, but when they drafted him, they had Hubbard and
He's got a
Henderson.
51
So-
PFF grade, 48 in run defense, 50 in pass rush. The only thing that they like is his coverage.
Love
His
that.
coverage. He's 6'5", 275-pound edge rusher, and most of his good PFF grade comes from his coverage grade. That's amazing.
wild.
0 sacks on the year.
Yep.
1 quarterback hit. 9 tackles. He's been bad.
Yeah.
He's playing full games too. He's played weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's playing about 28, 30 snaps per game average. So
Yeah.
that's not full games.
Not ideal. Not ideal.
Okay, so man, we derailed ourselves. All right, let's
Yes,
get
we
back
did.
here to
We sure did.
So Garrett wanted to talk about Jamin Davis.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's actually hopping back in here again to talk about him. So Garrett's first point was that
He was sad
he
to see him.
thought that this was the game that this Dolphins game was the one that he thought Prince Capsaicin said it. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Prince Capsaicin said this Miami game might have been the one that Jamin Davis got called up for because of how thin we are at linebacker right now with Cooper not playing. Cooper and McDuffie. Is that right? Yeah, so we're thinking Tyron Hopper's probably going to have to play. He played only like 11 snaps in this 49ers game. Was pretty good. He was the guy who made the tackle on that long Debo run. Long Debo kickoff return
That's right.
or punt return that then got called back to a 49ers penalty. But still, Hopper did save the touchdown on that. So I
Yes.
appreciated that from him.
Whew.
So
Yeah, that was concerning, but yes.
Jake, I'll let you answer Garrett's question here. Please address what happened with Jamin Davis. Really disappointed that he's gone. His PFF grade was better than Quay's. I know that's not saying a lot, but the potential was there. I think we were all like happy that he got picked up, but also not like huge expectations. Just kind of like, hey, why the heck not? You know, you can get him
Yeah.
for pennies. Let's see if something
Yeah.
can happen with him. So now obviously he's gone to the Vikings. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this was essentially like the Willis thing, right? It was like, okay, this is draft pick, high upside, kind of a dart throw. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, no big deal, right? That they're picking him up. I do think he, as a prospect, was very similar to Quay, in that the processing speed and all of that was still an issue, but athletically he was very impressive. So that's, and I know that Washington, before they cut him, they were playing him at defensive end, which was interesting.
Weird fit for him.
Very weird. But again, at that point, he had played a lot of linebacker. Try him anywhere you can, I guess. See if anything can work. And it just didn't for them. It's weird that like he has been, at least per PFF, a better run defender than a coverage player, because he really was more about operating in space at Kentucky than he was, filling in the box, correct run fits, all of that, gap discipline. It's weird that PFF has basically over time said, yeah, he's gotten better as a run defender and just hasn't been a good coverage player. Now, could Green Bay have seen that differently? For sure, because it seems like they are determined, which fair on their part, to have Quay be the mic, which is totally fine. And I would not love to be moving guys around too much, right? As Quay's starting to get the feel of things, but obviously before this game he really wasn't. So yeah, it would be nice with a thin linebacker room, especially because Hopper hasn't played really. So yeah, it kind of stinks. I know that Prince Capsaicin is saying, right, like, you can protect 4 practice squad guys each week. I'm trying to think, which guys Green Bay would probably protect, but yeah, they never really say. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of surprised we never got to see him, because it seemed like the type of pedigree practice squad signing that eventually turns into an elevation. That was difficult. And to Adam's question, that's Jared Davis from Florida.
The guy I always get Jamin Davis mixed up with is Jabril Cox. LSU linebacker.
Okay.
Was he from LSU? He was from LSU, yeah.
And that was the same draft. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I did not like Jamin Davis as a draft prospect. I really liked Jabril Cox. And I think Davis went significantly earlier in the draft than Cox did.
Yeah. Jabril Cox was a 4th rounder by Dallas, I'm pretty sure, and Jamin Davis went top 20. So
yeah. And has Cox been hurt? He hasn't played.
Yeah, I think he got hurt a lot. He did get hurt. I think his second year he got hurt. It was a major one, if I remember
Wait
correctly.
a minute. Both these guys are Vikings now.
Are they really?
Davis and Cox are both
wild.
Vikings.
That's wild.
Jabril Cox got cut by Dallas after 2 seasons. He played 1 snap on defense for Washington last year, and now he's a Viking. He has not played at all this year. Last year, he was a pretty regular special teams contributor. Looks like he played almost every snap of special teams for Washington after getting there in week 8.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I remember.
Prior to week 8, he was kind of homeless, was not playing anywhere. He had a snap on offense, apparently, according to PFF. I'm going to guess that was just...
It's a deal down?
This is crazy. PFF says that he played 1 snap on offense for Washington in 2023, 1 snap on offense for Dallas in 2022, and 1 snap on offense for Dallas in 2021. I've never heard of anything like this. That's bizarre.
That's wild.
A lot of times if you see just 1 snap like that, like, maybe you see Jordan Love on special teams or whatever.
Yeah.
Like occasionally PFF does just like enter the wrong player's number when they're logging something. That's like, weird. Hey, you got player number 11 on special teams, and then log 10 or whatever. But
that's very weird. Yeah, I remember that was a draft that had a lot of guys that people were talking about in the first 4 rounds, right? You had both your Ohio State guys, Browning and Werner. Zaven Collins was in that draft.
Actually,
That was
Browning and Warner
Parsons.
have kind of both gone on to be good too, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Browning's played edge, which is fun.
Where did he just get traded to?
Arizona from Denver. That was JOK's draft. That was Parsons, of course. So yeah, there was a lot. There's a lot of guys that went early in that one. We are derailing ourselves with draft again.
Okay, I'm going back to the
I wanted
49ers.
I was gonna say
What we were doing
go
is
ahead.
we were answering
I'm
Garrett's
gonna leave
question
this up
about-
and I'm gonna leave this up because I think it connects with the 49ers at some point when we kind of get to it.
Well, we're going to talk about the defense for sure.
Yeah.
So I did want to kind of hit on the offense a little bit here. So obviously, like Josh Jacobs was almost the entire offense. Our leading receiver was Romeo Doubs. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 54 yards. Jaden Reed also had 3 receptions on 3 targets. That
good
was
to
kind of
see.
it for the entire receiving room. Tucker Kraft had 3 receptions. So they definitely spread the ball around a bit. I thought this was not one of Jordan Love's best games. I thought that last week was probably the best we've seen from him kind of all year, at least the kind of most complete game we'd seen from him. He was 13 of 23 for 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 big-time throw, 2 turnover-worthy plays. I think you probably don't hold the free play against him because he obviously knew it was a free play before he threw that pick in the end zone. And we have no way of knowing if he would have still thrown that ball if there had not been a flag already. So, not, I thought, his best game.
No.
They were 6 of 13 on 3rd downs, which is...
Take that.
You'll take it.
Yeah.
They scored touchdowns off of turnovers for 26, 16, and 56 yards. Like I said, they had the 2 turnovers on downs that the defense forced. The first one, when it was still a game, they punted. And that, I thought, was kind of a low moment for the offense. That was one of those where I really started to get nervous that the offense was like going to start sucking the air out of the room for the defense, and we might see them kind of start to let their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And then obviously the last turnover on downs that the defense forced in garbage time, the Packers turned over on downs themselves. They were well within field goal range at that point. They were at the San Francisco 30-yard line. I really would have liked to see them kick a field goal there and just kind of put an exclamation point on that game.
Sure.
Because you had the ability to do it, and I just think that kind of continuing to throttle it there, like first of all, that's not one of those where it really makes sense to go for on 4th down.
Yeah.
Because that whole drive, it was 4 runs, I believe. 4 plays, 9 yards. They burned 2 minutes and 6 seconds off the clock. Well, they burned 2 minutes and 6 seconds off the clock with their first 3 plays.
Yeah.
Your 4th play doesn't burn any time off the clock. So just kick the field goal or throw the ball. You have a higher likelihood of converting if you throw the ball. And it's 4th down, so like, don't worry about the fact that you're going to stop the clock. Like, the clock stops if you don't get it. So I would have liked to see them kick the field goal. Didn't think it was a huge deal, but I just kind of would like to see that. Looking at what they did early on in the game when they were really humming, they get out to that pretty quick 17-0 lead. Like you mentioned, the red zone performance was a lot better. The red zone offense, Jordan Love talked about it. He said that red zone was a focus for them this week and that he was pleased with how they executed. So their first 3 possessions I thought were fantastic. So you open the game with a 12-play drive, 67 yards for a touchdown, burn 7.5 minutes off the clock, force a 3-and-out by San Francisco. Then 10-play, 49-yard drive that burns almost 5 minutes off the clock, ends in a field goal, 51-yard field goal. And here are the plays from that drive that stood out to me. So Josh Jacobs converts a 3rd and 1. You immediately have 2 really long runs in a row by Emmanuel Wilson back to back. He picks up 28 yards combined in those 2. And then the drive sputters out right after that. The next play after those 2 long runs, Josh Jacobs gets stuffed for no gain. This is the way for that rocket ball that like Jacobs was just not ready for.
Yeah.
And I don't really blame Josh for that so much. I think that was just not a great throw by Jordan. It was accurate. It just was like you didn't need to throw it that way. Then you have a throwaway on 3rd and 9 in a spot where I think we all were watching that play and thought, this looks like a sack or an interception based on the way that Jordan has played a lot of this year. So him throwing it away on 3rd and 9, I really didn't have a problem with. He had Dobbs was kind of open, but I didn't hate the decision to throw it away because things were kind of falling apart at that point. So you are in range for a 51-yard field goal attempt. Like, don't lose any yardage here. There's the difference between punting and kicking the field goal. So I thought that was still a pretty solid drive. Defense forces another 3 and out. This one I thought was more on the Niners than on the Packers defense. So they get a 3-yard run that's called back due to a hold. End of the quarter. Short pass to McCaffrey for 5 yards. So now it's 2nd and 10. Incomplete pass to Debo. Quay made a nice play to break that up, but I still kind of put that a little bit more on the Brandon to Debo connection, kind of not being quite right there. And then Kittle picks up. Sorry, it was a holding call, so it was. We're at 3rd and 15 at this point. Kittle picks up 8. And they are able to contain him, and they got a punt on 4th and 7. So at this point, you're still feeling really good about the game. Get a nice 12-play drive by the Packers offense to put another touchdown on the board. And then at this point, there is a long, long time in the game before you start feeling good about the Packers again. So the Packers defense allows a very long 5.5 minute, 11-play touchdown drive to San Francisco. And the Packers punt, end a half. The defense gets a turnover on downs coming out of the half. Punt, San Francisco interception, right in their own red zone. Packers do score, but you're still like not feeling awesome about the offense at this point. San Francisco field goal, Green Bay punt, 49ers punt, Green Bay punt, San Francisco fumble. So at this point, it's almost the 4th quarter. So I really felt like for sure the middle 8 of the game, but really just about all the 3rd quarter and most of the 2nd quarter really was not feeling solid about the way the Packers offense was playing. It was just kind of a low moment for them. And I thought that things kind of came back to life when they really doubled down on the run game. And I thought they had some really nice creative runs. A couple 2-back sets out there that I liked. You had the one that didn't work because Chris Brooks gets called for a tripping penalty, but there were a couple times that they had Brooks and Wilson both out there that I thought they had some nice looks there.
Yeah. You want me to start on offense? Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me on offense for this group was last year, right? Aaron Jones has the 100-yard game, and how they beat the Niners on the ground last year was with the toss plays, right? Getting to the perimeter, letting Aaron Jones and the speed kind of take over, let the processing take over, and he broke some big runs in that game. This time, the Packers deciding that, and they've kind of moved to this because of Josh Jacobs, right? Jacobs entering this game, JJ, had the zone and gap splits on his runs were 88-87. As close to 50-50 as you can be without being there through half the season. And it's really nice to see that variety, first of all, running for the running game, because as the too high shell has become the norm, being able to run the football successfully, even against light boxes or even heavy boxes, has been kind of the meta this season. We've seen it in Detroit. For Green Bay to be able to displace these guys vertically, to essentially part the Red Sea on that Jacobs run where he makes the safety miss with a spin move. But running, I need... Dan Casey has the name of this play. I need it. Where is it? Oh, man. Maybe he doesn't have it. I thought he did. But it was like... The way that they have Jacobs run into motion, and they've done this a couple times this year, not like that out of the two-back set, but from motioning back in to the backfield to get kind of him running to set up their counter game is so fun. And they got to it this game with they're still running guard H-back counter, but the way that they're doing it with Jordan Love basically being a spinner, right? They're creating all of so much to think about. And they put it on film with Willis against the Colts as well. But they're putting so much out there to think about with who they're sending in motion, who's out there, what personnel they're in. And there's still just the ability for them to also just, with some doubles, push guys out of the way. Josh Myers is doing much better in this regard. Sean Ryan is a mauler, and they're running off right guard on a lot of these. And, man, he's going to make it difficult for Jordan Morgan to crack the starting lineup when he returns.
Really?
Because
I did not like how Sean Ryan played, actually.
That's fair. But with how they, especially Kraft, like when you have a tight end who mixes it up so effectively like that as a run blocker, and I remember, in the middle of October last season, it was time to call it quits almost. But Kraft buckled down from then on, and he is such an asset out there in the run game that, man, I'm thoroughly impressed with how LaFleur has adapted and designed the run game for Jacobs and how effective it is. And just the many looks that they can get into a few of the same runs. Now, passing, you mentioned it, right? It was just Jordan, not the best, not the cleanest. He kind of got big game happy at the end of the half there, right? After the Watson drop, wanted all of it, didn't need all of it. But he was also pressured on 10 of 25 dropbacks, which I thought was interesting. But again, you're San Francisco, you're undermanned. What are you going to do? Might as well throw the blitz at him. Right? You might as well send the house as much as you can to see if you can get a turnover from a guy who has turned it over a lot this year. But yeah, he was, I think, 3 of 9, over 10 air yards. Not great. Now, of course, one of those was a drop touchdown by Watson, so that was tough. But yeah, not great in terms of his numbers against pressure. He had, I think, minus 8.3% completion percentage over expectation. Just not his cleanest. And it just feels like the passing game is so much feast or famine right now. And again, that's fine, right? We've seen it click before with this group, but it just feels like each week it's one receiver not doing something, right? It just feels like they're not completely putting it together. And if they're going to put it together on the stretch run, awesome. But it just feels like the receiver room doesn't fully put it together every week. And I think LaFleur is noticing that, and that's why you're seeing Melton out there, right? That's why you're seeing Malik Heath catching touchdowns in the second half. Like, you should see it for it's good on him to get everybody reps, because again, it's just the drops are killers. Everybody's had a case of it this year. Again, you don't have you have different roles on the offense for each of these guys. Not everybody can run the full route tree. As an X, not everybody can be a slot receiver. So it's nice that they're doing that. But yeah, I think the strength of this team is the run game right now. Just hoping that consistency can arrive, and it's not so feast or famine. It's not, explosive plays or nothing in the passing game. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Garrett has a point that I wanted to make. That
Oh my gosh.
Luke Musgrave has been out this whole time. He's been on IR, so he had surgery earlier this year, and I think he was expected to be back in early to mid-November. So I think like at this point, it would not be surprising to see them kind of open that practice window for him to return soon. And I have wondered because he was a little bit banged up in training camp. I've been wondering a bit if some of his early season struggles that we saw in the 4 games he was able to play, where he was averaging like 20 snaps per game, if any of that had to do with nagging injury. He just did not look like himself at all, and like Tucker Kraft has cemented himself as tight end 1 at this point. Last year the Packers were like 2nd or 3rd in the league in 2 tight end sets, and like they're putting John Fitzpatrick and Ben Sims out there a lot. Would love to see what we could do if you get a healthy Musgrave out there. So I don't know. I agree with Garrett's point that there's untapped potential there. He's excited about Marshawn Lloyd. I don't know if we're going to see a healthy Lloyd at any point this year. I kind of think this is sort of a redshirt year for him.
I kind of think Lloyd would have scored on that play. That there was gobs of space on that Jacobs run.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining gap runs that like give him that opportunity. That is a scary thought for opposing defenses. Like he's got the burst. He doesn't have quite the sustained speed, but that's like letting Gibbs or Achane have that gap. And like that, it's just a dangerous thought. So like with the O-line doing that type of work and everything LaFleur is doing pre-snap to, make the linebackers think as much as possible before they get into where they're supposed to be is huge. And when you give a player that explosive, those looks, which again, as you said, I don't know if we're going to see him necessarily, right? I think we have to kind of get comfortable with Brooks as the third guy, which, slow start, kind of thought maybe an afterthought. We're seeing a little bit of improvement, which is good, right? He's obviously coming in mid-season, hasn't been in this offense, so that's good to see. But the possibilities are really exciting. And yeah, I mean, Musgrave, big playability down the seam as well. Yeah, sure.
I tweet a lot of negative things about Chris Brooks, and I could see where people might think that I just have like a vendetta against him as a player, or like that I don't want him on the team. My gripe is entirely with Matt LaFleur and with Ben Simmons, the running back coach, for choosing for it to be Chris Brooks that we go to in all these gotta have it moments. Like 4th down, late in the game in a 1-score game. Why can we not have Josh Jacobs out there or Emmanuel Wilson? Like,
yeah, no, that's fair.
Play Chris Brooks, just don't play him in those moments. It was like last year I was just so frustrated with the insistence on using Toure and Patrick Taylor in all these gotta have it situations. I think like the Falcons game was one where it's 4th down at the end of the game, and all we need is like a touchdown or a field goal to win it or something like that.
Yeah.
And all of our receivers are banged up, and so it's like Samori Toure was like one of 2 actual receivers on the field. Everybody else was hurt on the sideline. I know Romeo Doubs took himself out of the game because he was hurt. Yeah. And we went like back-to-back plays to Patrick Taylor and Samori Toure. And it's like, listen, there is a time and a place to try and give these guys their shot. This is not it.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So that's my entire thing with Chris Brooks. He's a good pass blocker. I don't mind having him on the team. I don't mind giving him snaps. But, like, give him snaps in the 2nd and 3rd quarter.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't put him out there on
that's very fair.
3rd and 4th down in a 1-score game.
Yeah.
There's other opportunities to play him. Like, just pretend that you didn't have him. Pretend that he was out with an injury. What would you do in this moment? You would play somebody better than him. So just pretend he's not there and go play the person who's better than him anyway.
Play Jacobs, yeah.
Yes, play Jacobs. Like, oh man,
It seems
You have to
Emmanuel's
throw Jacobs
tired.
out there again.
Emmanuel's tired. He's carried the ball 6 times already this game. We can't have him carry the rock again.
7 times.
Put Chris Brooks out there.
7 times for Wilson. That's just too many.
I think he had 10 carries this game. Wilson had where the heck is it? Wilson had 9 carries. That doesn't sound right to me. I'm sure it was 10. Anyways, 9 carries
back,
for
maybe.
41 yards. He had 4.6 yards per attempt. What the heck is going on with my camera? This is so annoying.
I don't know.
Chris Brooks. PFF is only crediting Chris Brooks with 4 carries. I really thought that he carried it more than that at the end of the game, but whatever. 4 carries for 11 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. You notice the difference here? Emmanuel Wilson, 4.6 yards per attempt. Chris Brooks, 2.8 yards per attempt.
I do notice.
Like, Emmanuel Wilson is a fantastic runner.
Yeah.
Use if Josh Jacobs needs to go suck oxygen because he can't be out there for this, got to have a 4th down play, whatever. Put Emmanuel Wilson out there. I think he's about as good of a runner as Josh Jacobs is. Like, I love him carrying the rock. Chris Brooks, put him out there to pass block or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you can let him get some carries in the second and third quarters or whatever to kind of keep the defenses honest and not tip your hand too much. But in this got to have it plays, if you want Chris Brooks on the field, fine. Put him out there as a pass blocker and then also have Josh Jacobs next to him and have Josh Jacobs be the one who's actually gonna carry the rock. All right?
Yeah.
Just saying. All right, rant over. I'm gonna reload my page again so that my camera will turn back on.
Yeah, so Prince Capsaicin saying Lloyd can come back for the last 3, Morgan for the last 4, and then Musgrave at any time. Yeah, obviously it would be nice to have Morgan back for depth anywhere, and it'll be good to have Musgrave back as the seam stretcher, right, doing all that. So, yeah, I mean, it is a good time to have these guys coming back. It'll be a perfect time for them. Hitting
Jake,
a
what would
stretch
you
run.
do?
Yes.
What would you do if there's a running back you really like in this class? Like, let's say that it is the 3rd round and, I don't know, Travion Henderson is still sitting there. All right, you got Josh Jacobs still locked up for 3 more years. Marshawn Lloyd, we haven't seen him at all, but he's on a rookie contract. We got Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, I kind of feel like the fact we haven't seen Marshawn Lloyd makes it hard because there may very well be some running backs you really like in this class.
I would draft him.
I mean, last year was, like we talked about, it was a bad running back class. There were only a couple guys we liked at all. We on this podcast liked Marshawn Lloyd. We had some age concerns, some, kind of wear and tear, injury type concerns, whatever, fumbles, yeah. But we liked him. We said Packers should go ahead and draft him.
Yeah.
I also would draft somebody.
Yeah, I'd have no problem doing it. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech. Oh boy, slippery dude for how big he is too. Like, I cannot stress how many running backs there could be in this class. I can't, and good ones. Like, I cannot stress that enough. Well, then I'll pose a question to you really quick. Okay.
Well, you're forgetting one of the best running backs out there, Alex Orji.
That's true. That is true. I mean, can he play H-back? That is a question that they, that's something that could come up. I feel like he's big enough to do it. I feel like he would. You're in the first round, okay? I know what you've got at the position. Okay.
Is this an Ashton Genty question?
No. It's different. That would be fun. No, Dallas is drafting him. They're gonna be picking ahead. It's just not gonna happen. But you're sitting there, and there's this guy available who has carried the ball out of Wildcat. He's so productive as a receiver. He's been a good blocker. You love to be in 12 and 13 personnel, and Tyler Warren's just sitting there. Would you take him?
I mean, the question is, would there be a need to put any other players out there on the field? I mean, he's already Penn State's entire offense.
I'm just saying he could also
Couldn't
play
he
running
be our
back,
entire
potentially.
offense?
He could also play running back, I think. So, you know, what do you think?
With the way that he can run block, I kind of just want him as a tight end. Like, let him
That's fair.
just
That's
be a
fine.
traditional tight end. I think that his
Kraft
the
and Warren
one
and
area
12.
of weakness for him, his pass blocking stinks.
That's
but he's a
fine.
fantastic run blocker. They can't really throw the ball there, anyways. He's a
Yeah,
fantastic run
we're not worried
blocker.
about that.
Just like Iowa tier receiving tight end.
Yeah.
So like
Warren and
teach him how to
Kraft and
pass block,
12.
maybe.
Warren and Kraft and 12.
Yeah.
That's nasty stuff. That is a nasty stuff.
You know what? I co-sign on that. I mean, look.
Okay.
I was.
I'm going to be doing
Tucker
this.
Kraft.
I'm going to be doing this all off season, by the way. I'm going to be driving this train. So if you want to hop on, that's good news. I like to hear.
What about Luke Lachey? You want Luke Lachey?
Well, this was more
Colson
of a first
Loveland?
round question. Well, Loveland.
Colson Loveland
Let's
might
see.
go in the first round.
Here's the thing, though. As you already said, Warren can run block. And so the ability in 12 personnel to smash your face in running the football is really exciting to me. But also having two guys who, like Warren at the catch point, tremendous. Body control, all that good stuff. And then Kraft after the catch, like there's so much to like as a duo. Not to, as we have definitely derailed ourselves again. But like, how can you not love that idea on offense? Especially like,
I do love it.
And like, also, I know I'm just the receivers. They're frustrating me a little bit right now. They are frustrating me. The consistency is just not quite there. It just feels like it's happening every game. So, yeah, I know it's saying this is crazy, but like it takes a receiver off the field who's been inconsistent. So that's why
Which receiver are we taking off the field?
anyone.
Oh, to go in 12 personnel.
Yeah. Exactly. Like the consistency is frustrating. So that's also why I brought that up. But
Well, I was a huge Tucker Kraft truther in the draft.
same.
In that draft class. And
man.
I think
I've never been more. I don't know if I've
think
ever
it was
been more
you and
excited.
I who were going head to head about Luke Musgrave because I was not a Musgrave believer. Was it you? I think it was you.
It wasn't me because I had him as the 6th tight end. So
okay.
it was not me.
It was somebody. It was somebody in our Discord.
Okay.
Me and him were going back and forth.
It wasn't me. I was kind of.
Musgrave.
I didn't love that. I didn't. Not in the 40s. Did not love that. But
Yeah.
I
mean, look, when he's been healthy, his rookie year, his rookie year before he got hurt, he was on a hot streak right before that had you excited about what he could be.
Yeah. It just the vibes are very much this is number 9 playing tight end. That's what the vibes are, unfortunately.
Right.
And I don't love the vibes on that right now. And that's what it's just it felt like it. It's like, okay, big plays, very sick. What else you got?
So what he needs, I think part of what he needs is what number 9 has been going through, which is a physical transformation. I think that Musgrave needs some more muscle. I do.
Yeah.
He's not the best blocker.
No.
He has demonstrated so far that he's kind of injury prone.
Yeah.
Hit the gym, bulk up, follow the Christian Watson plan.
Yeah, I think he needs to.
Fix my camera again.
I think he needs to do that. For sure. Tyler Dershel, I wanted to get to this, right? Saying it's time to give the offensive line their flowers. Now, I don't like that he is pointing out this is the best they've had since 2020 pre-Bach injury. That is like, we're just talking about vibes. Don't put those out there, right? Don't bring that up. Don't bring up a 2020 injury like that. But I do agree that the O-line is playing very well. They did give up a decent amount of pressure this past week, but that has been that's been their strength all year. So that was weird. Not looking too much into that. They've been a really, really good pass blocking unit, and I've already kind of said my piece on how I just feel like as a run blocking unit, Zach Tom getting after it, who has kind of been labeled the dancing bear pass protector. Like, it is fun to watch this unit when all 5 of them are out there, and having, as we talked about, Morgan get back is a big deal, just for depth. Oh, this is a good one from Garrett Stritzel. What's the best case scenario for the playoffs? Do you have one, JJ, that comes to mind?
I would take whoever wins the NFC West as long as it's not the Niners. Here are the teams I would like to avoid. I would like to avoid the Niners and the Lions in the playoffs.
Okay.
So let me take another swing at the Rams or Seattle.
Yeah,
Anybody in the NFC East, even the Eagles. Like, let's have another bite at that. Actually, I think that would be kind of nice to, if we faced the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs.
First.
Well, I mean, we're not going to win the NFC North, probably.
No.
Not at the rate that the Lions are going. Like
No.
that, I just don't think that they're going to drop enough games for us to catch up to them. So
Yeah, I agree.
that means we are playing on wild card weekend, and so do you think the Eagles
I've
are
got
going
this
to
scenario?
go ahead?
I think this is it, because you've said you don't want to play the Lions. The scenario is
The Lions are probably going to have the first round bye.
I think they are. I think that puts Philly in the 2 spot for me, because I don't think the West and the South aren't catching Philly, so they're going to be the 2. I think the goal has to be finish ahead of Minnesota. That is the goal. If you finish ahead of Minnesota, you are the 5.
Eagles, Vikings. Yeah.
Yes, because the
So
Vikings
then
are
that
probably
puts
going to
us-
win their first game in the postseason as the 6 or 5, right? Because you're getting West or NFC South, right? That's what it's going to be. One of the Packers are getting the South or the West. The Vikings are getting the other one. If they get the 5, Minnesota gets a W as a 6. You're avoiding Detroit. Minnesota's going there. You're going to Philly. I think that's the best case scenario. I know Philly's been on a heater. Good for them. I still feel like if
Wait, did you say you think the Vikings are going to beat Philly?
No. I said I feel good against Philly still. I think you can.
Yeah, but if we're the
5
6th seed.
Yeah, but I'm saying we got to be the 5. We got to pass Minnesota. That's the goal. You have to find a way over these
Sure.
next 6 weeks to pass Minnesota. You pass
So if
Minnesota.
we're the 5, we play the 4, which is probably the NFC West leader, who we are hoping is.
You never know. It could be the South. I think Tampa Bay is going to win it. They're 5 and 6 right now. They're 1 back of Atlanta. I think they're going to win that division.
The West right now has 3 teams that are tied at 6 and 5. Is that right?
Do
6
they?
and 5?
I think they have 2 6 and 5, 2 5 and 6. I think it's
Okay,
Cardinals,
that sounds right.
Seahawks,
So-
and then it's Rams, Niners.
I kind of think I would take the South to outperform the
Okay.
West. The South winner, who's probably
you-
going to be the Bucks. I think the Bucks.
Yeah.
I don't want to play the Bucks, to be honest with you.
That's
I think
fair.
the Bucks are scary. I would rather play the Eagles than the Bucks, and I would much rather play anybody in the West except for the Niners than the Bucks.
That's fair.
I have no interest in playing the Niners in the playoffs again. Just none. I don't care who they're missing.
Then I
I don't
think
care how they limp in there.
you
me
want the 5 seed real bad, because I think the Bucks are going to be in the hunt for the 3 if the West keeps self-immolating, essentially. So,
And the other thing is, if you
Minnesota
have the
at
5,
Tampa would be fun.
if you have the 5 and you beat call it the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
If you beat if
Right.
as the 5 you beat the Seahawks or Cardinals,
Yep.
then your next game is going to be against the winner of 3-6. Do I have that math right? Which
So,
we think is Minnesota.
Your next game, if Philly
Tampa.
wins as the 2, and you want to avoid the Lions as the 5, you need the 6 to win, which in this case would be Minnesota over what we're assuming is Tampa, right? So if you get Tampa and Minnesota as the 3-6, Minnesota wins, they're going to Detroit. Green Bay wins as the 5, they're going to 2 seed Philly. That's how it would work to avoid the Lions before the NFC title game. But as we said, you never know. You don't know who you're going to get as the 3 or 4.
I don't think the Commanders are going to win their division, But they're
No.
probably going to be the 6 or 7 seed.
They're probably going to play at Philly again for a third matchup.
Frankly, I would like to see either the Commanders or the Buccaneers go, or I mean, maybe the Vikings go against Detroit. I kind of think those might be the 3 teams that have what it takes to knock off Detroit. And nobody really scares me outside of the Niners and Detroit as far as like matchup for the Packers.
Sure.
I just think that like the Lions have enough ways to hurt you.
Yeah, they do.
And they are well coached enough. I just think whoever gets them in the playoffs really has a really tough go of it. And I don't know that the Packers are really good at several things. I don't think they are good enough at everything to feel good about a matchup against the Lions. And there's maybe some teams like the Vikings who probably are good enough at everything to take on the Lions.
Yeah. I think
same with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers, I mean, they already did it this year, of course. And they obviously played them in the postseason last year. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to go through Detroit, right? It really is. I just you maybe hope Minnesota pulls the upset and they're coming to Green Bay for an NFC Championship game. I just think at some point Green Bay's going to have to probably play at Detroit to get to it if they're going to get to New Orleans. Again, get hot. Everything, falls your way. You take advantage of the 5 interceptions Goff is throwing. Probably not as many, but you take advantage of those unlike Houston, right? Like that's what you're going to have to kind of live by. You're going to have a couple things break your way. You're going to have to play a very clean game. It's doable. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult. But that Detroit feels like the biggest hurdle in the postseason for anyone. And I like Garrett's order here. I do think Atlanta's very
for the
fragile.
audio only pod. I'm just gonna. Oh, whoa! Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, there you go.
Here's our. This is our first super chat on this channel. As derailed, where do you go to restore your hand hair? Please DM from Cricket. Thanks, Cricket. I appreciate you. Thanks for the love. And this is a genuine werewolf. All right, you like what you see? My father is a werewolf, so it's genetic. Appreciate you.
There you go. There you go.
For the audio only pod. Listeners, Garrett says, I'd rather face these teams in this order for the playoffs. Number 1, Atlanta. Number 2, Arizona. Number 3, Seattle. Number 4, Washington. Number 5, Tampa. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I think this is good. I think Atlanta's a very fragile team right now. Which is why I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, personally. Arizona, I think Kyler's super hot and super cold. I think it's very easy to get to his cold game. Green Bay's already beat them very soundly. Seattle. That's again that game Sunday. Seattle showed that like having McDonald there is a big deal. Witherspoon's back to his rookie form. Like if they defensively, they can do some things that might frustrate Green Bay, but I don't think they are in the end good enough at this point talent-wise. They've got some X's and O's, but I think Green Bay's got good enough X's and O's and better Jimmies and Joes than Seattle does. Yeah, the Commanders have this weird voodoo magic going on right now. The play that almost tie the game against Dallas is nuts. They got a Hail Mary this year. Probably wouldn't want to see that. Would be freaking out if they were up 4 and the Commanders had a chance to throw up a Hail Mary. Not fun to think about. And the Bucs now with Evans back, yeah, their defense is finding it too. Yeah, I don't want to play them very much. I really don't. Do I think Green Bay can win? Yes. But I do think, Godwin's on IR, but at the same time, they can run the ball very, very well. Irving, White, Tucker, Mayfield to Otten has become something that Mayfield Godwin has been, and they have Evans. And Vea and all those guys, like they are just, that's a defense that can turn it on at any point. Bowles has the history, the pedigree of doing these type of things. Yeah, would not want to play them very much. Root for the Panthers this week, folks. Root for the Panthers to upset the Bucks if you don't want them in. But yeah, what's going on? Airs Joy. But yeah, Mayfield's been having a year. Adam says he doesn't want to see Seattle. That's interesting.
Listen, you can't avoid every team in the NFC in the playoffs, all right?
No.
But again, I enjoy the differing thoughts on who you don't want to play in the postseason. Feels good to be saying that already. It's kind of like, who you want? 6 weeks left. Who you want to? Who do you not want to play in the postseason? That's nice versus last year where it was like, are they going to even make it? Yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba, JJ. I'm sure you're seeing it. He is heating up. He is.
Yeah,
and I'm loving it. I love it. It has been. It's awesome.
It's amazing the difference with a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is a route god, who can get open better than just about anybody else in the NFL. When you go from, I don't know, Shane Waldron to anybody else.
Yeah. And by the way, he has firmly taken wide receiver 2 from Lockett. It was going to happen at some point. It has. So that he's been.
Well, I think Ryan Grubb has done a fantastic job in Seattle.
Course.
I loved the hire. I loved what he did at Washington. University of Washington, since we do have a Washington NFL team. Loved what he did at Washington. Loved the hire. Local guy, coming down the street. So liked that.
He took an afternoon stroll between the facilities, I think. So
and his stroll from one facility to the next was more impressive than Shane Waldron's entire career.
Yeah. Not even the play, just walking, just the walk. Yep. Just the walk itself.
What do you think about Seattle's tight end situation? As long as we're derailed onto Seattle,
I think it's fine. They always have like 5 guys who like are on the field. Like I know Noah Fant's there. He's fine. I think my biggest concern with Seattle is when Geno gets on a heater, he clearly has 2 studs to throw to. Walker is very feast or famine, but when he feasts, yikes. It's like Barkley level stuff. I think tight end room, Fant is a nice story that he's, getting some more run out there, but not a whole lot, I don't think, to necessarily write home about.
Listen, we got to give the Derailer of the Week award out. I think it goes to Garrett, but there's some other people who've been really
I think it goes to ourselves.
Doing strong work there as well. Yeah,
we've been doing a good job.
So the Niners were missing Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, and Nick Bosa. They're 3 of their 5 best players easily. And I thought that the Brock Purdy difference was noticeable. Not that Brandon Allen was playing poorly, but there were just a lot of incompletions that were just bad balls, just hitting the dirt. And I just am really nervous about how long we can survive without Jair, because our cornerback room is really bad right now. Valentine had just a horrifically horrible day.
I blame the number switch for that. I do. That's what I'm going to say for now. That's what I'm going to say for now. You're doing 37's a great number to have. No need to change it.
Might be time to change it back.
I think so.
Let's Let's get the message to Carrington. Tell him to switch
I
back.
think we got to. Had the Sam Shields number on and was playing some solid ball and just decided to put 24 on, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Adam Huddle says disagree. Valentine was fine versus San Fran. Out of curiosity, are you a Niners fan? Is that where you're coming from when you say it? So Carrington Valentine had a 31 PFF grade.
Wow.
He allowed 3 receptions on 4 targets for 60 yards, 40 yards after the catch.
Jeez, was this like
passer rating when targeted of 116. I don't think he played that well. Not sure what you liked that you saw from him. I didn't think he was that good.
I will have to go back
Run
and
defense
watch
wasn't any better.
Valentine this year.
39.3 run defense grade. No tackles, no assists, nothing.
I'll have to watch Valentine this year. I'm interested to see if there's just something where he's just maybe uncomfortable with the scheme switch, but at the same time, like, it's been a lot of middle field closed, which they did a lot with Barry. Funny enough, last year they've just been better at it.
Speaking of, should we talk about Barry?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Isn't it relevant? Isn't it relevant this week?
I don't think he's relevant to the outcome personally. But
here's the thing:
I do think we're going to have to talk about Miami for sure.
So it's going to be a cold game. Would have to expect a lot of runs, hopefully. Josh Jacobs had an NFL season high 15 missed tackles in one game against the 49ers.
Forced. He did not play defense. Missed tackles forced. Yes.
No, that is a stat that we're used to hearing when we're talking about Joe Barry. No, so missed tackles forced by Josh Jacobs, 15. He was averaging 3 yards per carry after contact per rush. And as a reminder, he was averaging 4 yards per carry total. So offensive line could have done a little bit better job run blocking. Again, I thought that Sean Ryan was a little bit to blame for some of that.
Yeah.
The Dolphins have the 3rd lowest tackling grade on defense via PFF in the league. It is a short week here. We'll see if Josh Jacobs can be fully recovered, but I do really wonder if this nice warm weather Miami team coming into a cold Green Bay game on a short week maybe is about to have their faces run over by Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing. The Dolphins, they've figured a little bit out on defense. I think that's for sure partially due to Chop Robinson. I think he's, if I have this correct, second most pressures among rookies, 39, and the highest pressure rate at 19.8% out of any of the rookie rushers this year. Him and Ogba have been creating a lot of pressure.
Who is that?
Chop Robinson.
Chop Robinson.
He's been explosive, and he's getting to the quarterback in different ways. They obviously still have Ramsey there. I think Ramsey's going to be at his best, near the ball. That's kind of as he's, as his career's gone on, I think he has been personally better in the slot. They might use him to help kind of, reinforce, fit the run a little bit heavier. But as you mentioned, right, Josh Jacobs, first off, 67 missed tackles forced on the year. That's 3rd. He also has 740 rushing yards after contact this year. That's 3rd in the league. You see the trend, right? Obviously, Henry and Barkley are having great years. The Dolphins right now have a 13.2% missed tackle rate this year. That's 17th lowest. I don't know why. Didn't just say 15th 15th in missed. I don't know why they did 17th lowest, whatever. They have allowed the 11th most yards after missed tackles, though. So if they're missing the tackle, teams are taking advantage. There's not usually guys rallying to the ball very well or taking great angles to ensure that one missed tackle doesn't turn to big plays. That should be good news for Jacobs for sure. That should also be good news for Tucker Kraft, who has, pun intended, been very crafty after the catch this year. So I think that will be helpful. But I do think it's going to have to be, I think, a similar game plan, as you said, kind of just, run the ball really effectively. Yes, offensively, where just don't get yourself into third and longs where these pass rushers can tee off and they can put a lot behind them in coverage to where it's going to be difficult, right? You need to be able to get yourself into manageable second and third downs. And, if the shot plays are there, we got to convert. Got to convert on those. Begging for consistency. So it is
CC Dontavian Wicks.
CC Dontavian Wicks. CC Jaden Reed kind of in the middle of the season.
CC Jordan Love.
CC Jordan Love with some off-target stuff. CC Christian Watson last week. Especially because we can't CC Romeo Dobbs on anything this week. We can't send him anything. He probably isn't playing. Didn't practice this week. Or not this week. Wow. Did not practice today, right? And that's just a little over 48 hours before kick. So that's going to be difficult. And concussions have often been 1 week absence anyway. So you're kind of just hoping maybe he can be back for Detroit a week from Thursday. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little undermanned. Malik Heath maybe got to step up like he kind of did catching a touchdown this week. Bo Melton might need you. So kind of going to be all hands on deck in the passing game.
I mean, I'll take some more of the Christian Watson we got last week instead of the Christian Watson we got this week. Can we
that would work for me. Yes.
That would be more than enough to win the game. If we got last week's version of Christian Watson, the dude can put the team on his back at that point.
Yeah. That would be nice. That would be very nice.
Hey, side note. Pause. Yeah. Chat. Question for you. Can you weigh in on your thoughts on our Northern college football discussions? Do you like them? Do you love them? Is it, hey, whatever, it's not really my thing, but whatever. Do you hate them? Let us know.
Yeah.
I put a poll on our most recent episode in Spotify. Do you enjoy our Northern college football discussions? The options were love it, like it but don't love it, and it's not for me. So far, 100% of the votes came in for love it, but I want to get the YouTube vote as well. So thank you very much for that. All right. Man, should we talk about the DBs and the situation we're in right now without Jair?
Yeah.
And I think the chat is kind of hopping for that too. So Garrett says, does Green Bay pick a DB number 1 in the 2025 draft? He wants to know some potential names. Chris says the Packers need to buy a respectable corner in the offseason. So there we go. So thoughts on thoughts on the cornerback situation for this week against Miami? Because man, we got and I recognize that we didn't respect the Niners passing attack at all, and we're really keying off on stopping the run.
Yeah.
But also, I do really question if we have the horses in the stable to slow down, not even stop, but even just slow down the Dolphins' passing attack. What do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be very difficult. I do think the Dolphins haven't run it very well, even since Tua got back. It is an offense that has kind of kept teams honest running the football and has made their hay with the short stuff with a lot of the window dressing. They get Jonnu Smith the ball, who's a tough player after the catch. They get the ball to Devon Achane in situations where he can take advantage of his speed. And then, of course, as the elephant in the room, they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who can wreak havoc in the middle of the field. They can wreak havoc at the line of scrimmage. They can wreak havoc down the field. They will turn 15-yard digs into 70-yard touchdowns. That has not gone away. Now, Tyreek Hill has the wrist injury. I don't know how much that is affecting him. He won't say. He shouldn't say probably, because then teams probably won't push as much coverage his way. But it's going to be tough. It's Tyreek Hill doesn't have a great week last week. I know it's New England. I get it. But here comes Waddle. Here comes Achane, 2 touchdowns. Jonnu Smith, like they have so many ways to mess with your linebackers pre-snap. They're doing a lot of this very similar motion stuff to what LaFleur is doing. They're just running different stuff off of it. They're running a lot more screen game and quick game, getting the offensive line out. And then they have, the 2 kind of aces in the hole in Hill and Waddle, who when you're thinking about all this stuff pre-snap at the linebacker position, all right, I need to get here to the edge, right, to limit some yardage with the screen game and all this, and I have to get down to defend the run, even though they haven't been running it well, it doesn't matter. To then open yourself up to, I have to get back off of play action, otherwise we are getting gashed for 65 yards. It is Quay Walker had an awesome game on Sunday. This will be quite different. This will be quite different playing against this team. When Tua's in there, they're so much better offensively. He distributes it so well. You're going to have to pressure him. That's the one thing that's really good about this matchup is that they have, at least on paper, a unit to take advantage of what has been a pretty poor offensive line for quite some time in Miami. They've just done a phenomenal job masking it. Armstead's played better recently, but I do think there are going to be opportunities, especially at right tackle, especially on the interior, right? That's the problem. And to Airjoy's point, right? Tua's not a dual threat player. But when Tua's at his best, he is evading pressure and making throws by stepping up or rolling a little bit. He can do that. And when he's in that mode, that is a problem. That is a big, big, big problem. So they're going to have to take advantage of getting quick pressure, but also not allowing the play to be extended just that half a second longer, because that is where the Waddle and Hill plays come in. And yes, they aren't running it well, but they have Achane who can move and create at the line of scrimmage as a receiver. It's just going to be a lot. It really is. And yeah, I don't know if we're going to see Edgerrin Cooper, but it's tough, man. It's tough. Gary and Van Ness and Wyatt are going to have to be up to the challenge again. They're going to have to be up to it, because it's just you probably, JJ, I don't know if you want to chime in on this. You think they're going to have to win a high scoring game?
I think probably with the way their defense was playing this past week, especially the coverage. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't even think it's going to be close if the offense isn't putting up points. So, to your point, we need better consistency from the receivers. I think that's been the number one issue besides penalties. Penalties have been the number one problem that's cooked this the whole team, but especially the offense all year. The wide receivers dropping everything has been the second biggest issue, and I don't think you're going to beat the Dolphins if you have as many drops as you have had. Just put it that way. I still think that the run game is going to need to be a big part of this game, and I would not be surprised if Matt LaFleur comes into this really wanting to kind of grind the clock out and limit possessions for the Dolphins. Yeah. If you're Jeff Hafley, the name of the game here is turnovers. We talked about how the turnovers were such a big key to the victory against the 49ers, it's by design. Like that's the point of this defense is to generate turnovers, to make plays on the ball. That's what they practice. That's how these guys are coached.
Yeah.
Is it a bit fluky? Is it a little bit dangerous to depend on those kinds of plays? Yeah. It's a little bit more of a sure thing to play the Mike Pettin style of defense where you are just trying to limit big plays and make teams grind it out and hope they make a mistake somewhere along the way of a 12-play drive that you get a holding penalty on the offense at some point. And like frankly that's kind of still the style of defense that I like to see anyways, but we changed it up and brought Jeff Hafley in because it wasn't working well enough, and Jeff Hafley's defense is predicated on getting these turnovers. That it's a huge especially by the corners and safeties. This is absolutely massive. And if the linebackers can hang out of the football too, that'd be nice. We've had a lot of footballs hit linebackers in the hands. Looking at you, Quay. You need to start holding onto those footballs. The Packers absolutely can go toe to toe with the Dolphins and secure a win here, but I do think it's going to be a combination of the receivers for Green Bay playing up to the level of the receivers of Miami talent.
Yeah.
And they're good enough to do it. They just haven't been playing with enough consistency. We've seen basically every single receiver on the team this year, with maybe the exception of Wicks, turn it on for a game or 3 games or 4 games even. We've seen, like, for a while, Jaden Reed was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's kind of disappeared. Christian Watson had his freaky game last week. Like, we've seen it from all these guys. If you can get, I would say, 2 of them to play a really good game and not be dropping passes. Romeo Doubs, obviously, like we said, probably not going to be available for this game.
Right.
But if you can get, let's say you just get Reed and Watson both humming, and the defense gets 1 or 2 turnovers, and you're running the rock with Josh Jacobs. Maybe you sprinkle in some RPOs, either with Jordan, maybe with Malik, here or there. I think that there's absolutely enough to even beat the Dolphins convincingly, but it's probably going to be either high scoring or have a lot of turnovers generated by the defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, they've been able to do that, right? I think the last time they played Miami would have been that game. Was it Christmas Day? The week of Christmas?
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
Okay. And they forced turnovers for Tua.
Yes.
They pressured him and they forced him into some bad decisions, which we know it can be done. Like that has proof of concept. That is there. It just it has to the defense has to throw them off their rhythm in some capacity in this game. There has to be something that just gets them out of the flow where Tua is just ripping throws on time with anticipation to the right spots, and they have all their playmakers in the right spot, and they're getting good yardage after the catch. So there's just something that they have to throw off the rhythm of in this game defensively. Like there's something. And again, taking away the run is a really nice start if they can do that, right? The Dolphins haven't been running it well. When Hafley gets into those situations where it's 3rd and long, the different pressure looks that he can present to Tua could throw some stuff off. So that is at least one way that kind of just could be the key right off the bat is limiting the run game, making them one-dimensional a little bit more, but also doing something, just anything where like the middle field's not open, like you're making Tua hesitate in the middle of the field. That will help a ton. Just anything that can throw off the rhythm. Hit him a couple times, right? Like it is very imperative that even if the Dolphins are doing enough, just having something in this game where, whether it be a turnover or not, where you are disrupting them in some way. You aren't going to be able to to fully stop this team. I don't think you're going to see, a 24-3 type of game that Green Bay wins. I think they're going to have to put an upper 20s number up there to win this game. So yeah, it's going to be keeping on schedule yourself offensively and throwing them off schedule in any way possible, which is very, very doable, because I do think their defensive line, for as much as we've talked about them all year, they have the advantage in this game. They just need to go prove that the advantage is what we see on paper. So,
Look at the time here.
Yeah.
We're over an hour and a half. We have not touched on our Northern College football because we've leaned so heavily into NFL draft stuff this whole episode. I don't even think we're going to get an opportunity to talk about Northern College football. And the chat is still wanting to talk about draft stuff. That just might be what we do this week. I did see Dolphins fans talking about how linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. is probably not going to be ready to play Thursday. And so they are expecting Dodson to play. And Dodson, I've heard a lot of people talk about Dotson being bad in the run game. PFF doesn't really agree, but I just have never heard anybody say otherwise about that he's kind of a weakness in the run game. So, hey, if he's out there, let's see what we can do. Run at him a few times. Targeting Devondre Campbell was pretty darn productive on Sunday. So,
yeah,
target Dotson in the run game, not in the pass game.
yes. And he's a recent signing too. Seattle cut him a couple weeks ago, and Miami made that move to pick him up. Just kind of shows you this is going to be a game where, on both sides, linebacker depth is going to be tested. And as Garrett was talking about earlier, it would sure be nice to have Jamin Davis at least as depth. So
Henry says we can't drop another game. And we have Buffalo and Detroit.
Yeah, that was the tough part. That was the tough part. The Seattle game really hurt San Francisco. Really hurt them.
Are you scared of Buffalo as a Packer fan?
No.
I'm not even remotely scared. Like they're I don't want to crap on them. I don't want to say they're a crappy team. They do not terrify me at all. I fully anticipate we're going to beat the Bills.
Yeah, I
Detroit. The last few years, it seems like we can show up for one Detroit game, but not the other. So since we already laid an egg against them once, I kind of am expecting that we're going to blow their doors off the second time around.
Yeah.
But no question, the Lions are the scariest team in the NFL right now. It's not close.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Even with our complete shift in defensive philosophy, I would be more excited and optimistic about playing the Chiefs than a Lions game anywhere. So
yeah, I mean, I don't.
The Ravens. I'll say the Ravens kind of scare me at the moment.
That's what I was gonna say. I know. Again, it's been a while since they played that game on Sunday night, but Henry just imposed. They just imposed will on Buffalo on that Sunday night game. Baltimore did. I don't know if we've kind of forgotten about that at all. But that was utter domination. Again, Buffalo's played better, but and they beat Kansas City. That's awesome for them. They've beat Kansas City in the regular season before. It hasn't done them any good, no matter what they do in the postseason. I'm not rooting against Buffalo. They've long been due a championship. It'd be awesome if Allen carries them there. I'm concerned in the playoffs when they go up against Kansas City or Baltimore. Honestly, can't believe I'm saying this. Didn't think I would say this at the beginning of the season. I don't think I'd want to see the Chargers if I were Buffalo. I don't think I'd want to see them.
You know, the one thing that would give me, and like obviously matchup is a huge thing, but the one thing that would maybe give me some pause on that would be somebody put together, it was a Charger fan, put together a list of the Chargers' wins and losses this year, specifically against which quarterbacks they had played, and they beat all the crap quarterbacks and lost to all the good quarterbacks. So I know
That's
that
fair.
that doesn't mean a lot, but it's that's also one of those things that kind of sticks with me a little bit. And I've been
Who do you like better as a coaching staff?
Well, I mean, obviously, I like John Harbaugh way better than Jim Harbaugh.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Buffalo or LA? I know you don't like
L.A.
Yeah, I was going to say,
LA.
I know you don't like
Yeah.
them because of where they've come from. But I feel like I like, and that's not even a shot against McDermott turning the unit around and them playing better, or Joe Brady, who's done, a really nice job. And this is the other, the other point. Like they seem to, there seems to be a couple decisions during playoff games where Buffalo just, I don't know. Why it
Buffalo
happens.
has, for like a lot of years now, at least 2 years, maybe 3 years now, they have had a crazy overrated defense that chokes in all of the big moments.
The Bengals
I've-
in the snow.
I've been
one year, like
a big wet blanket on the Bills for a couple of years, and it's mostly has to do with their defense. For a long time, it was their defense, their run game. They finally have kind of gotten the run game figured out, thankfully, after what feels like 15 years.
Yeah.
But I still just don't have any confidence in that defense at all. And like the offense is good.
Yeah.
It's certainly good. I don't think the offense is good enough to overcome the defense in the playoffs. Like whenever they do face an elite team in the playoffs, they always get their butts handed to them.
Which again, like if you're thinking on the other side of the ball against Buffalo, and you're the three teams we've kind of mentioned other than Buffalo in that conference, like how are you not imposing your will, limiting their possessions on offense, making them have to nearly be perfect to keep up with you? I feel like all three of those teams can do that.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Herbert and company are going to be terrified by a Buffalo defense. I know the Ravens aren't, and we know the Chiefs won't. So, like, it's just I think those are the four teams. I don't think Houston's in the mix, right? I think they're probably going to end up they're going to end up facing the Steelers or the Chargers or the Ravens, one of those three, in the first round. That's tough, buddy. Yeah. That's tough when you're giving up as much pressure as they are. So I think those are the four teams. And just Buffalo, I feel like it's fourth for
right
me.
now, I think that the race for the Super Bowl is a 3-team race, and then you got a couple of teams who are really threatening to make some noise.
They're
So the
lingering.
3 teams
Yeah.
would be the Lions, Chiefs, and Ravens.
Yeah.
And then the teams who I think are like threatening to make some noise, probably the Chargers,
Yep.
the Packers,
Okay.
and maybe the Buccaneers.
Okay.
And I would say that I think the Vikings will be a very dangerous out in the playoffs.
Okay.
I don't see them winning 2 playoff games, but I think that they could really bite one really talented team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I
that's
see.
true. Yeah.
And it, like I would not currently have the Packers as Super Bowl contenders at the moment. If they can figure out their issues in the defensive secondary, I'll have a lot more confidence. I think right now they are still
That's a major question mark.
right now
Major question
the
mark.
biggest issues facing them are they are still trying to plug the hole left by Preston Smith, and I think they can do it, whether it's LVN or
Yeah.
Carl Brooks, or we'll see. I think that by the end of the year they will. But they're still working on that at the moment. The cornerback situation has been just absolutely their Achilles heel. They need to get Jair back, and also I think somebody besides Keyshawn needs to step up. I think you need to have 3 good corners out there, and right now they only have 1. So that's kind of an issue. So, and then the final issue for me, even though I'm kind of tempted to go with like the linebacker safety depth because of injury, I'm actually going to rank the wide receiver consistency as a higher issue. the talent of our wide receivers is absolutely good enough. Like we have seen, like all of them have the ceiling of, top 3 receiver in the league. Like I think Wicks is the best route runner on the team. I think he's one of the best
100%.
route runners in the NFL.
100%.
He has a Devontae Adams release.
Just catch the ball, dog. Please.
And we target him all the time because he's always open. He's always open.
People, I don't know why people are less like, why is Dontavian Wicks keep getting targets? But because you can't see another defender on the screen.
Right.
The defenders aren't on the screen when he's getting thrown the ball. Like it's
exactly.
Unless it's down the field, which again, he's not the burner, right? So there are going to be guys who stay in the hip pocket down the field vertically. But like if you're looking at the short and the intermediate stuff, no matter what, vertical play and horizontal breaks, it doesn't matter. Like he has all of that down to get open consistently. It is just legitimately catch the ball. And like,
here's a question for you. Have you ever done any kind of a study on which types of routes he's dropping on versus not dropping on? Because it seems like most of his drops are when he needs to turn and run, and he's turning and running before he's completed the process of the catch, which to me says like, don't put him in the slot. Have him.
Yeah, I mean that's
more slants.
Yeah, Reed's when they're in 11. I don't think. I mean, Dobbs can be in the slot as well, but Reed is obviously that guy. Yeah, I think you got to leave him out at X or Z on most of the plays. That would be interesting to go back and kind of look at. Obviously, Green Bay plays Thursday, so it'd be nice to kind of have that game, in the mix as well to look at over maybe the weekend and just see like what's happening versus last year. But yeah, I think.
Can I read something to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is brutal. This is Wicks's passer rating when targeted per game. All right?
Yeah.
Let me see. Has he missed any games? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, he has not missed any games. Our bye week was in week 10, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So starting week 1, ready? 39.6, 131.3, 39.6, 66.7, 43.8, 42.4, 77.1, 89.6, 39.6, 39.6, 95.8.
So there is something.
So many drops.
There is. It's not even. I swear. I'm picturing this in my head because I feel like I see this every week, where Wicks is like having to like try to like lunge with long strides to the ball that just isn't in his vicinity, especially on outbreakers outside the numbers. That's what's coming to me at the moment. Where like anything outside the numbers that he is running to the sideline, it just doesn't feel like the ball is on target. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's on Love or Willis. It could be on Wicks in terms of the depth of the route. You have to kind of go back and look at all those. But it just does seem like that he is a few steps away from those off-target throws outside the numbers. It just doesn't. It's either a same page issue or it's just an off-target issue for the QBs, or it could be a mix of all of them. But it's just I feel like I see that a lot. Where like Wicks is winning the outbreaker, and I remember this in week 1 too. Wicks wins the outbreaker against Quinyon Mitchell. Ball was late. Mitchell got invited back into the play. Pass breakup. So like he's open. It's just, there's some. It's just weird. And again, the drops are a problem, but there's also just some of the targets just aren't excellent in terms of timing and ball placement.
37% of his targets, 17 of 45. Yeah. PFF is only crediting him with 6 drops. I'm assuming that they are just. I'm assuming that their threshold for what counts as a drop is just a little higher than mine.
Could be.
I'm assuming that some of the things that they're looking at and just saying, oh, it's just incomplete. Like, to me, I would call it a drop, but they're saying that he didn't have enough control of it for it to be a drop.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's more in like the few that have been more contested, right? Even though they've kind of been he's kind of been in a favorable spot where they're maybe just kind of chalking it up to contested stuff, which, as we know, is often volatile, right? At the receiver position, winning there or not. So that could be. But yeah, 6 does seem like a low number, that's not a good That's not a good
I
sign
mean,
when you
just-
feel like
just
6 is
between-
low.
Just between us girls, I think there's been some games where he had 6 drops.
It might feel like that, yeah.
I will say, week
Lot of
4 against
stuff going on in the
Minnesota,
chat
he was targeted
about
5
that one.
times. Targeted 13 times and caught 5.
13
He was targeted 13 times and he only
against
caught 5.
Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
my
next week he went
gosh.
2 of 6, then 1 of 3, 3 of 6, and then at that point his targets finally dropped off after week 7. Houston, he had 2, 3, 1,
Yeah.
and what is this last one? 2 this past week. So his targets have finally fallen off after the Houston game. He was our number 1 most targeted receiver. at
You've
one point in the
convinced
year.
me. I'm watching every snap tonight.
I
Watch
think
every snap
that-
tonight. I can't wait to figure out what's going on. Other than the drops, right? Other than the drops, but we'll dive into those too. But I can't wait to find out. Like it feels like there's just so much. It just feels like it feels like the majority of his targets are just like kind of like, this just isn't the best placed ball, or like this isn't, the timing's off or stuff, or it's dropped. It just feels like every target is just kind of like something is wrong with the target in some capacity. Someone's at fault. It's just not clean. I don't know.
saw
But a lot of chat about the DBs.
yeah, I was looking
A
at
lot in the
Garrett.
chat here.
Garrett said, I feel like the Pack are just asking for a Kevin King performance in the playoffs from one of our DBs. The DB group is an Achilles heel for the Pack. I'm not seeing Kevin King. I'm seeing Demarius Randall. Like, that's more akin to where I think we're looking.
And that's, I think, a great point of like why you don't want to play Tampa is because I feel like we're walking into the game that they played last year against Tampa. 34-20. Maybe it's
Pick
34-24.
any of the games we played against Tampa in the last 5 years.
Sure. But last year being the closest because of personnel. But like it just feels like they're walking into that type of game, where it's just like the defense can't stop them. The offense, is trying to do as much as possible, and they lose 34-27 because they just cannot keep up because the defense isn't getting enough pressure, and they're getting shredded on the back end. And yes, it will be more difficult without Godwin, but it's just I think they're going to be playing really good football down the stretch, and they're going to click.
Nice comment here from number 1 Juggy. Bears fan here. Packers have a great young team. Hopefully we can keep pace in the next few years. Yeah, I actually think that the Bears fans have reason for sure to be optimistic about the future. I think that the coaching staff is still a problem.
Yeah.
And
Very
there are
clearly.
some areas on the roster to improve, but I think that there is enough talent there that a better coaching staff should get much better results out of this team. And also, I just want to say, this is one of the more likable Bears teams we've seen in recent years. Like, the only players on the Bears roster that I dislike at the moment are DJ Moore. I really dislike his personality. And then, like, Jaquan Brisker runs his mouth a lot, which, fair. That's what DBs do. But obviously, it gets under my skin sometimes.
Yeah.
But like DJ Moore, I think is the only Bear who's annoying at the moment. Like, you guys got rid of a lot of the guys who were really unlikable characters. So
It's difficult.
I like Caleb as a person a lot.
Yeah. No problem with Caleb. Love the determination. I will never quit Roma Dunze. Ever. Love that guy. Awesome. I do think he is going to be the wide receiver 1 there eventually. But yeah, I think the Bears. I think we might have touched on it in this late
week?
August before the season started. Of kind of like the Bears, they can tip the scales in favor of themselves if the O-line takes a step and stays healthy. They haven't done either, and they don't have a lot of depth, and that has contributed to some of their problems. Obviously, there's been a lot with, play calling with Waldron, but it does feel like, I think, it's tough because Adunze is a good player, but it's maybe coming back to haunt them a little bit that offensive line wasn't the move in the first round after drafting Caleb.
I mean, I certainly agree the offensive line should have been the move there because there were some elite offensive linemen left, and you just didn't get anybody. I do think that the offensive line has been good enough that they should be winning more games than they
Sure.
are. And I think that, and obviously, like we talked a lot about how you needed to set up your rookie quarterback for better success, but I do think that they win more games than what they have if Caleb is playing better. I said a couple minutes ago that I like Caleb as a person. I had to specify as a person. I still he's still not my type of quarterback in that he holds on to the ball way too long, and I don't think that he always sees the whole field. And that to me is an issue. And look, sometimes Jordan Love gets that way for a game or two, and I don't like it when he does it either. But
Caleb is not the first quarterback to have those issues, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And I was looking at his
but it's been tough for those types.
His pressure to sack ratio, I just wrote it down the other day because I was talking to a friend. His pressure to sack ratio is basically right exactly where Justin Fields always lived. Here it is. So he's at about 30% on the year, which is right where Justin was. So for comparison, Lamar 11%, Joe Burrow 16, Derek Carr 9, Jaden Daniels 18,
crazy.
Mahomes 17, Josh Allen 10, CJ Stroud 21, which is the highest number on this list, but still 10 points away from where Caleb is. Jordan Love is at 8%, Brock Purdy at 14%. And I also noted that Caleb is hovering around 30%, but I think it's kind of being propped up by his Carolina game, where he got pressured a lot and didn't take any sacks. And if you take that game out, he is considerably over 30%. He's almost 2.5% higher on the year if you take that one Carolina game out. So, and I think obviously the biggest part of that is the time to throw. So the last few weeks he's been, and I did not look at his numbers this past week against Minnesota, so these numbers I'm reading are from before then.
Sure.
But he had been at 2.8 seconds per play for several weeks in a row, whereas up through like week 9, he was over 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is a huge difference.
Yes. I think that with Caleb, the last 2 weeks, he is taking the scramble. I think he was trying his hardest not to. Right? Because again, as much as like players can say they don't hear the criticisms, they don't see them, there's just too much. There's too much access and connection to the digital world right now to like he knows. He hears it. He knows what people are saying. He knows what the negatives were on reports. He does. There's no way he doesn't know. And I think for a while he was trying to prove that he could be the complete opposite of the scrambler, right? Like, I'm going to do everything I can to not be that. I'm not going to do it, right, unless I absolutely have to. And I think I don't think he needed to necessarily erase that from his game. It is totally fine to scramble. Yeah. Heck, Brock Purdy has been tremendous doing it this year. Right? He has been really, really good at it. And I think that, as Caleb continues to work through, like year 2, year 3 for a young quarterback, right, who doesn't have the amount of starts that Daniels or Nix had, right, coming out of college, I think it's very fair to start worrying about that a lot more and putting more stock in it. Like, at this point, like, especially the last couple of weeks, like if nothing's there, don't hang around. Like, you can go, like go, because we know you can do it, right? That is going to help us out if you just go. And he made some excellent throws this past week. The one to get into position to force overtime was awesome. Loved that throw from him. Like, he doesn't have to be the Stroud, the Burrow, the Herbert right now. You don't have to be that necessarily. I would love. It would be great for him to get to that point, right? That's what the Bears want him to do. They want him to get there. You don't have to put all of that on your plate immediately. Go be the guy you were compared to a little bit leading up to the process, and like take advantage of those opportunities when they get there. You don't see something, you see a lane, you see the access, you see the exit, take it. Like, go ahead. That is totally fine. And still, every week work through the process, right? And I think Brown's going hopefully, or whoever comes in, coach for the Bears' sake, comes in and gives him like, okay, this is what we're going to work on with this guy, right? This is the receiver I want for these type of routes. This is what you should be looking for him, and really mesh all of this together where you have all the stylistic receivers and you have, okay, Caleb, this is where I want you to take shots for this guy and this guy and this guy, and you can see an offense come together. So yeah, I think he didn't need to get away from what made him immediately. Even though it's awesome to see guys immediately come in and be the professional types of like first, second, third read, boom, ball's out. Like you don't have to be that right away, right? Jaden was scrambling a lot. I know the rib injuries hampered him, right? And he's probably not taking off as much as he wants to now, but Jaden will take those, right? Bo Nix is taking those. Drake May has taken those. Like, you're an athlete out there. It's okay to go be an athlete. Trust me. It is totally fine.
So we have several, I think, really good Bears questions in the chat here. And if we weren't at the 2-hour mark, I would really want to get through some of those.
I start so many things.
Here's what I want to do, because we have, even without getting derailed on other topics and people asking other good questions, we have at least 1 hour left of content to get to, and we're out of time. So what I want to do is let's
Can we play the rapid fire game
and rapid fire these comments that we starred
really
and
quick before the stars.
What's that?
Really quick before the stars. Appreciate you, number one Juggy.
Yeah, thanks, Juggy.
Appreciate that a ton. Make sure I want to get to that. That's all.
So I want to rapid fire these comments that we starred, and there's one Northern college football team, two Northern college football teams that I want to talk about.
Perfect.
We will do those real quick, and then I got to crap on Debo Samuel one time, and then and then we'll do Jake's final thoughts. My final thoughts will be crapping on Debo.
Okay.
So first of all, Jake, go ahead and hit the starred comments that you want to talk about and rapid fire them.
Okay. I want to go. I want to go there.
I'm gonna set a 2-minute timer per question, and I'm gonna cut you off at 2 minutes.
I think we go even less.
60-second timer. Okay.
Yeah. Garrett had this one. I can go up. We can go up from here. But where does Detroit's offensive coordinator land as head coach next year? Says Vrabel's being linked to Vegas. We won't touch on that, but I think I'm going to say when the Bears fire Eberflus, who do they hire? Do you have something
more
for
importantly,
that?
when they fire Eberflus and Poles, who do they hire?
Yeah,
Poles
it's going to be tough
go.
not to do both, right? It's very weird to do one.
Well, it's time for the Bears to stop staggering it, because they stagger.
Yeah,
we're going to fire the. We're going to get rid of our GM one year, the coach the next year, and the quarterback the year after that, and then we'll do the GM again. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Top down.
100%.
Get guys who are going to work together. Get a new GM and a new head coach.
Yeah.
And build a real team. Quit going out there and burning the most cap space in NFL history on off-ball linebackers. Quit with crap like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Giants have to do the same thing.
Overpaying for guys like DeAndre Swift.
Right.
Look at what Saquon is doing with the Eagles right now. That is what happens when you put a talented running back behind that offensive line. What you got last year was when you put a crap running back behind that offensive line.
Yeah.
The Bears fell hook, line, and sinker for Swift's stats in Philly.
Which I think my answer to this question can still get Swift into the mix where he needs to be. There are certain things you don't put on Swift's plate, and there are things you put on Swift's plate. Do you have a name really quick on this rapid fire for this?
Not really. I have maybe like a type.
Okay.
I think they're going to bring in. I think they're going to bring in somebody stupid. Just saying. Like the current leadership of the Bears.
I have the name.
Go ahead.
I think it's Liam Cohen.
Why
I
do
think
you
it's Liam
that?
Cohen. Huh?
Why do you think that?
I think because of the way, and again, this Canales quickly, made something out of Mayfield. I think Cohen has added to the Bucs run game. He's actually got it going, which I don't think they really did last year. It was just kind of Baker, Godwin, Evans, Rashad White out of the backfield. That's how we're going to do this. I think Cohen has done a really nice job with 2 backs on the field. This leads to my point, which I think perfectly meshes. You make Swift your Irving, right? Pass catcher, space player, and then you get the other running back in this draft to get into those 2-back sets. So I think what Cohen's doing with the 2 backs right now in Tampa, I really like, and I think he can bring that to Chicago. And again, Cohen's done a nice job with Baker in that continuation from Canales where it's a cheaper guy, right? We don't think the Bears are going to go all in for a Ben Johnson for whatever Ben Johnson's going to ask for. This seems more under the radar, and it's, again, defense to offense. I think they're going to go back to offense after going to defense again. That's where I'm going to lean, is Liam Cohen.
Well, it also fits the Bears type a little bit in that he'll be a first-time head coach.
Yep.
They have not really been interested in going after retreads. I think switching to offensive side of the ball is interesting. I don't know that I like the Bears' defensive players enough to have a lot of confidence in how are you going to run your defense with an offensive-minded head coach. Just being honest about what the Bears kind of are.
Fair.
I wouldn't hate the Cohen hire. He's an incredibly fast riser. 2020 assistant quarterbacks coach. With the Rams. 2021 he was the quarterbacks coach and I think co-offensive coordinator at Kentucky.
Yes, I believe so.
2022 he was the Rams offensive coordinator. Went back to Kentucky for 2023 offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
And then offensive coordinator for the Bucs this year. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would make the hire, but I could see the Bears making the hire.
Yeah, I think I would like to see it one more year in Tampa if I'm making a hire of that caliber. Personally, I think people are going to say the same thing about Minter in LA with the Chargers. So would I do it? Maybe not, but I don't know, Cohen or Slowick. I feel like I'm seeing more interesting stuff from Cohen than Slowick.
I like Garrett's comment that Ben Johnson might go to the Cowboys. I could see number one,
is he gonna like
Jerry
that?
Jones opening those purse strings enough to tempt him, and also, I think that Ben Johnson. I don't mean this as a negative. I think he has a big ego, and I think that he only wants a primo job, and I could see him considering the Cowboys a primo job. The one thing that would maybe make me question if he would be interested in going to Dallas would be number one, just how much firm control Jerry Jones has over the team. I'm not sure that Ben would like that. And also,
that's the one thing.
Seems like the entire Detroit locker room, the coaches, the players, really have hard feelings toward Dallas.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if Ben, because he seems like a guy who loyalty really matters to him. I could see him kind of being tribalistic like that and refusing to go to Dallas, which that I would do that too. It just kind of seems like maybe his MO.
Yeah, I don't mind the Ben Johnson to New York shout because I think if he goes there, they have cleaned house. I think
they're going to need
obviously Dable, but I think
GM.
Shane goes as well for sure.
Yeah.
If Johnson's going to go there. The one I'd throw out though for Ben Johnson is Jacksonville. Shad Khan is hands off. He kind of lets the GM and head coach kind of take care of football operations. He doesn't kind of step in too much, which I think he needs to probably kind of step in more, honestly, than what he is doing now. But I think
let me ask you this question: What makes Jacksonville a more appealing job than Seattle? Because the Seattle job was his for the taking, and he turned it down. Seattle and Washington, he turned them both
income
down.
tax.
Okay,
I mean,
fair.
that's all I got off the top of my head. But I think that's
Dang it,
yeah,
we derailed again. We're way over 1 minute.
I don't
on
know.
this.
I don't know. I think for me, the Jacksonville job, what would bring me there is they're talented backs. They got Brian Thomas. I think he can get he's getting the best out of Goff, right? On the optimist side of my takes on Lawrence, I think he's been up and down. I think you've seen the best, you've seen the worst. To me, I think Ben Johnson's the kind of guy who could get at the absolute best out of him. It's not a now the
I would
Seattle
very
thing's
much like
interesting.
Johnson to go to the AFC as well.
Yeah, there you go. And I think, right? I think maybe Seattle was hesitant because Geno, which way are they going to go? Are they going to kind of walk the line of keep him versus move on? And I don't know if he wanted to be a part of that or not, or if Schneider wasn't going anywhere, right? Like that's another thing that could have maybe been a turnoff. But he's going to get the GM that he wants down there, and I think there's stuff there that I think can work on both sides of the ball right now that Jacksonville has. It's just Balky's decision making has crushed them very much. So I do think it can work. I think there's a chance, by the way, that if Johnson does go there, I think you can see Debo going there. So I think San Francisco could move him in the offseason. That's a guy you can move around in that offense.
Yeah,
But we're getting into left field now. We've been on this question for like 8 minutes.
yeah. Go ahead and pick another question first.
Okay.
To rapid fire here.
This is more comments really quick. Eric's really talking about Wick's most needed Packer to step up along with LVN and Clark. Obviously the corners, right, would be the other one I think in that group. Anything on that, JJ?
No, I think that's entirely correct. Like either Stokes or Valentine, one of those two guys stepping up, because we need a second outside corner, and we need 3 corners total once Jair comes back.
Right.
So, we have talked ad nauseum on this podcast this year about the state of affairs with Stokes, and I think that this week was a little bit of a step in the right direction for him. But I just at the same time, like I just don't know how much is there, and PFF didn't like what he did either. He got a nice big workload for the first time in a while, 36 snaps. Yeah. So I guess he played a lot against Detroit too.
Yeah. Yes,
but he's like since like week I don't know, like around the Arizona game or something, he's been almost benched. So
wanted to say hello to Lee, who dropped in and said, hoping the young guys adjust well to this cold. And Jacobs seems made for it. I think Jacobs in the cold is what they were hoping A.J. Dillon would be throughout his tenure in the cold. But yeah, that's all I got on that. And
hey, we'll always have that Tennessee game. We'll always have that home game against Tennessee.
That's true. We will have that game. That game.
Oh, we got another super chat.
Yes, we did.
There's second super chat. So this is from Chris. You guys should do more podcasts.
I think
Much
we hit it at the same
Here's
time.
your flowers. So Jake, how many podcasts do you do a week on here?
I like video stuff here. It varies, but a couple usually.
I'm on here once a week with Jake, but Jake does other streams and stuff throughout the week. So you should check out his weekly Cheddar show. There's a lot of great content coming from Jake. So thank you, Chris, for the super chat and even more for the kind comment. Really appreciate that.
And
if
actual
you guys
flowers in there that I can see. Actually put a flower in there. It was just cool.
One thing that you guys could do that would help us if you like this show would be to subscribe on Spotify and give us a review on there.
That would help a ton.
We don't have enough subscribers on there yet to qualify for ad revenue, but it'd be nice. We could make a little bit from that too. So appreciate that very much. Okay, so Jake, you want to hit your next question?
Yeah. Yes, I would. This was a deep dive. I'm gonna hang on to this for a future show. So we'll get to that one, Erzo, I promise you. I would like to go here. I think next is Green Bay pick a defensive back, number 1 in the 2025 draft. And then who would it be?
Well, no, they won't pick a defensive back number 1 because they won't have the number 1 pick.
Well,
That's
you
gonna go
know,
to
you know what
Tennessee. The
I
first,
get what you're
the
doing
first
here.
defensive back to go in the draft is going to be Will Johnson. But after him, so what? Yeah, who's a DB that who I could see the Packers liking a lot would be Davison Igbinosun from Ohio State. He gets a lot of penalties. He's very handsy, but he is crazy tall and very fast. He's gonna probably be Christian Watson like when it comes to the combine. He's gonna have a fantastic RAS.
Yeah.
And I think that the Packers are gonna see him and kind of lick their chops at like, ooh, if we could get him to clean up the penalties, because
Sure.
that's how they look at a lot of their prospects. They think that they can coach guys out of stuff. And frankly, I think that if you watch Davison, like, yes, he is a little too handsy at times, but some of that is more allowed in the NFL than it is in college. And the other thing is he's going to be going up against bigger guys a lot of the time in the NFL, and I think that some of his penalties just look like PI, and it's not actually PI. There's a lot of times where it's like, the receiver is so much smaller than Davison and gets thrown backward, like they start hand fighting each other, but just like he's so big that it's just like, well, clearly Davison committed a penalty if he covered the guy up that well. But then you actually watch it and you're like, that wasn't really holding. That was just football. So I don't know. I think due to the athleticism and then also the penalties are going to push him down further in the draft to Green Bay range. So first or second round, I could certainly see them go in that direction.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up. I would do it. I hope they do it. I think in terms of the names, I think you have to watch to see if Benjamin Morrison goes back to school or not for Notre Dame. Got hurt pretty early into the season. I think he'd be up there, not quite to Will Johnson's level, but decently close. And that injury might drive him down the board. Same with Siobhan Revell from East Carolina, who tore the ACL in September. By all accounts, looking good right now after surgery. Could be on track for the start of the year in 25. He's somebody that is probably going to be up there even with the injury. And then, the one that's going to be very interesting is Jahdae Barron from Texas, who has slowly moved from the slot to outside corner at Texas, and the play has been very, very good this year. I think he's listed 5'11", 200, which probably means 5'10 and a quarter, 195, 194, which, hey, might be pushing Jair numbers with that. And if Green Bay likes him enough, they'll take him, right? Broke the thresholds
Texas has been the best coverage team in the country this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really good. Like if you're trying to poke holes in Texas, that's not the hole to poke at all. But if they broke the thresholds for Alexander, they definitely broke them for Jaden Reed. If they do it again, they really like the player. So definitely somebody that I would keep an eye on as well. I know he hasn't had the best year, but Jabbar Muhammad competes his butt off. Transfer from Washington to Oregon. You're going to get to see a lot of him in the next, probably couple months would be my guess. The national championship is the 20th of January. I think you're going to see him for a majority of that time, if not all. So would also be keeping tabs there.
Quick shout out to Tyler Dershel. Oh, we did it again.
Gosh, we did it again.
Super chat. 999 Tyler Dershel. This is fun. We for the last 7 weeks that we've been doing this on this YouTube channel here with the Jake Schyvinck YouTube channel. We haven't got any super chats. We got 3 tonight. Holy cow! So much fun.
Nice. Feels good.
Tyler says, for all you guys do, Here are some funds for that
That'll
eventual
work.
drink sponsorship. Happy Thanksgiving and go Pack Go. Tyler, this is what I was drinking. I don't know if you were on already. I was drinking coconut water,
Coconut water. There you go.
which I really enjoy, which is a little bit healthier than some of the energy drinks that I like to chug. But I appreciate because those aren't cheap either. It's like $4 for a big thing of coconut water like that.
I was on the Poppy tonight.
The Poppy. Oh, those are good. I like.
Yeah.
What's the other one? The what's
The
the
one
other one
that's
where it's
similar?
yeah, it's like a fermented like a fizzy. Maybe it
Oh.
is Poppy.
I mean, Olipop's one that's uses like
Olipop.
the
Olipop.
beet
That's the one.
juice. Yeah.
I like Olipop.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good too. That is good too. Appreciate that though from Tyler Dershel there.
And
Big one.
and look what we can bring back here.
I think
We can bring back. Come on, go live. There we go.
oh
The
there you
JJ
go.
Pay Counter and Jake
Oh my
Bucks.
goodness. The
Heck
counters.
yeah.
Look at that. Counters are back. Okay, I think we got to touch.
Appreciate
If
you.
you want to touch on the two northern teams, I think you got to do it in the next couple minutes here.
All right,
We
let's
kind
do
of
it.
accelerate to the end of this.
Let's do it. Okay. Share my screen.
Okay.
Bada boom. All right. So sorry, Tyler. I gotta take your thing off the screen so we can see. All right. Let me also kill this. Nope. How do I? I just want nothing. How do I turn nothing? There we go. Okay. Whew. So we're gonna do a really quick re-rank as well, probably for just a couple.
We might have
teams
to
that
do
need
it
move.
offline
Yeah, we may have to do that.
and share the
Wiz-
results next week with how it looked.
But we gotta talk about Kansas.
yes, we
so
do.
listen.
Put them in the
We-
playoff. They're
Listen,
hot.
Kansas is just they're like the Joker in The Dark Knight when he's like, it's not about the money, it's about sending a message.
Yeah.
That's Kansas. They just want to see the world burn.
Yes.
Tyler says move Kansas to tier 1. There's no question at this point. Like first of all,
They're phenomenal.
second half of the season, Kansas with Jalen Daniels
Is.
like Lance Leopold is cooking.
Yes.
This is, I think, the most dangerous team in the country at the
I'm
moment.
so mad
They're
they're
not
going
gonna
to
make the playoffs.
I'm so mad about that.
Are they mathematically eliminated from the Big 12 title game?
Yeah,
I think they are.
they
So,
are.
man,
It's
like
tough,
heartbreaking
man.
season for Leopold and his guys. Let's
I
see,
said it was
where
going to
are we at?
haunt them.
We have it here. They're at the bottom of tier 4 right now. We're going to fix this. There's no question.
Yeah, at
They
the
have to
very
go up into
least.
tier 3 for sure. We can.
They beat
We
the
can
two
talk about
teams sitting ahead of three teams. The three teams ahead of them right now directly. They
Yeah.
beat them all.
So Colorado,
Crazy.
you're getting demoted back down to tier 3.
It's crazy.
And I think, can Indiana stay in tier 1, or do we have to knock them back down to tier 2?
Yeah, I think they got to go
Like,
there with their buddies.
There's clearly a huge
Yeah.
separation. They
they got to go there with their
murked
buddies. Yeah,
by Ohio State.
yeah, that was
and
tough.
can we talk to the Indiana fans for a second here? So listen,
Sure.
Indiana fans,
Sure.
love you, love Kurt Signetti, love what the Hoosiers have done this year. Please stop crying. This is really embarrassing. The Hoosier fans have been weeping and wailing on social media about the fact that Ohio State dared to score another touchdown at the end of the game. Let's revisit the events leading up to that, shall we? Indiana scores a touchdown. They go for 2 and convert. They onside kick. Then they miss a ton of tackles, and Travion Henderson runs all the way down the field. Okay.
Credit to Henderson
At
here.
this point, the Indiana fans are going to say, yeah, well, Kurt Signetti didn't call his timeouts, and he had timeouts. So, he was conceding the game. Listen,
Yeah.
you can't go out there and talk your crap all year and say that Ohio State stinks and go for 2 and onside kick and then also cry about the fact that Ohio State then scores a touchdown. First of all,
they tried to. Henderson tried to leave it where it was, but eventually, kind of have to stop them. Kind of have to not get pushed around at the point of attack. Like,
By the way, you know who's not mad about Ohio State scoring the touchdown? Kurt Cignetti.
yeah,
Kurt Cignetti's
he
not
isn't.
upset.
No.
It's just Indiana fans who are upset about it. I
Cignetti's been
have
dominating
never.
teams.
Jake, can you explain to me the whole like don't run up the score thing? Like, because this has been a thing for like as long as I've been alive. That people whine and cry about. Oh, you gotta stop scoring at some point. Can you explain this to me?
Is that
'Cause
like a
I just
Kermit the Frog thing?
don't- It's a Patrick Mahomes voice.
Oh.
No, it's not. Really.
Well, yeah. So it's okay.
'cause
Yeah,
Mahomes
that's
would
what I
never say
asked. That's what I asked.
Mahomes would never say. No, I actually I've done that voice. That's like my nerd voice that I've done like as long as I can remember. That's the
You can't. Yeah.
when I'm trying to make fun of nerds. Joseph says, "What up, homies? Late to stream. Green Bay whipped a rival 38-10, and some media and podcasters act like it doesn't count. Hope that's not you, homies." No, man, I think we had a really fair conversation
Obviously, it
about
counts.
whether the Packers have fixed enough of their holes that you should be expecting dominant performances like that against good teams.
Yeah.
Like I think that the version of the 49ers that we whipped was not a good version of the 49ers.
Correct.
So I think that we had a fair conversation about it, and I don't think we're trying to take anything away from the Packers at all.
No.
Just maybe throwing some caution out there of like, hey, we still have some stuff to fix before,
Yes.
We have Detroit next week. So,
Yeah.
and Miami
Definitely.
this week.
Definitely counts in the win column. Isn't going to get any easier going forward.
Yeah, like I think
Stuff to clean up if they really want to get it done this year. So
I think
Yeah.
if you're like sorting our opponents into like tough opponents and kind of cupcake opponents, like a 49ers team that is 5-6 and is missing Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, and Trent Williams, like you're certainly not going to put that into your tough team column.
No. Okay.
All right, so Indiana, top of tier 2, still love them, still think they should make the playoffs over a lot of these 2 and 3 loss.
they're in.
SEC teams.
They're
And there's people talking about like well, Indiana will be the 12 seed. Like, bull crap. They better not be the 12 seed. They should be way higher than 12 seed. I mean, Penn State or Notre Dame is probably going to be the 5 seed. And Indiana should be in that vicinity. 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there. I think that maybe so I said there were 2 games I wanted to talk about, the Kansas being one of them. Penn State almost losing to Minnesota would be the other one I wanted to hit on.
Yeah. That's.
I think that probably knocks them down a little bit in the committee's eyes, and maybe in my eyes as well. I mean, it's just kind of shades of what we've seen a couple times this year, like
Sure.
barely surviving against Bowling Green, barely surviving against USC, barely surviving against Minnesota. Penn State is good for sure. I just think there's maybe a significant gap between them plus Indiana and Ohio State, Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Penn State to me this is what they do. Okay, they'll win the close games. They'll lose tough games to the better teams, and it just feels like they aren't like there. And by there, I mean where Oregon and Ohio State are right now. Where it just feels like losing big games. Yes, they're going to get in the playoff now, but now they're going to have to prove to me they can win a playoff game. Because I'm not that big of a believer in them. Yeah, beating Ohio State would have probably helped that a lot. Honestly, kind of rooting for Notre Dame and Penn State to play each other in the playoff, because that will mean that somebody kind of gets fraud watch off their back a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just,
I'll tell you the playoff
listen.
game nobody wants to see. Nobody wants to see Notre Dame, Indiana. Like, can we
Yes,
not
no.
have the 2 Indiana teams take each other down?
the battle for Indiana.
Like, yeah, it's cool,
The
but
battle
also
for
like
Indiana. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to be far.
you know
enough
who
apart
wins
in
that
the
game though?
rankings.
Notre Dame versus Indiana. You know who wins that game? The South.
America.
No, the
America wins. What a great. Did you
Well, you
ever
hate
think
Notre
you would
Dame.
see?
This is one of the differences. I'm
Did
like
you-
a
No, like
Notre Dame
no.
sympathizer, and you're a Notre
Let me
Dame
put it
hater.
this way: I don't like either of those teams. You're correct, but like truthfully, I think like Notre Dame and Indiana in a big game against each other is so cool. Like I
No,
just
for
don't
sure.
like
For
you
sure.
don't like. I never thought I would see this. Truthfully, I mean, even potentially with this expansion in the playoff, it was just kind of like, yeah, we're never going to see like two teams in the state of Indiana this good, potentially going to have a chance to match up in the playoff at some point. I think it'd be very cool. Does it have to be in the first round? No, no.
Well, but this is the point I was going to make: is they can't face each other in the second round because they have to play
It would have to be a
conference
semifinal.
winners in the second round.
It
I
would have
think
to be a semifinal.
Yeah, it's possible
would be
for them to meet
cool,
in the
though.
semifinal. So
battle
if they
for
both play in the first round and knock off some other teams, like they'll probably be playing Southern teams.
Mm-hmm.
One of them might be playing Boise State.
I think Notre Dame might end up doing that.
I think that could very well be. Well, okay. Here's the thing:
Just 'cause they're
either
gonna-
Oregon or Ohio State is going to be the 5 seed. So who's the 12 seed? Is it going to be Boise State or is it going to be
I don't
an
know.
SEC team?
It might be the Big 12 champion. Like actually,
Yeah, there is a lot of talk about that. That the Big 12 champion might be the
Yeah.
12 seed, and the
Yeah.
the Boise State might be the 4 seed.
Yeah, I mean that's what the playoff has currently. Which, yeah, I don't know if
But-
they're doing
okay.
that now. Like, I think they're still assuming that the Big 12 champ is going to have 2 losses and win their conference. So, I just don't know if like
You don't think that the ACC champ is going to have 2 losses?
um.
I'm not
Where are
dialed
we on
in enough on Miami and Clemson.
I
think
think
that they both
well,
only have 1 loss
SMU's
right now.
in the title game.
Oh, are they?
So in theory, if SMU and Miami win this next week, they're both in with 1 loss. So someone's winning that as a 1-loss team, that conference. Of course,
Yeah,
assuming
so
assuming
they'll
they
be
both
ranked
win
ahead
next
of
week.
Big 12 then.
Yeah. So I think the Big 12 is the one where, again, if Boise State loses next week or in the title game, which it's going to be difficult to do, then I think, then who knows? Who knows what happens to them and who gets the spot. But then the Big 12 obviously goes back into that 4th spot. I just think the Big 12 is going to be, as it stands, I think the committee is preparing us for the Big 12 to have a first-round game.
Do you think that the Notre Dame loss has eliminated Army from the playoffs?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'd really
I think
like to see Army in the playoffs.
I think
Army Notre Dame rematch
Boise-
would be fun.
so. What's interesting is if Boise loses, right? Like even if it's this week, they're still playing in the title game. They'll still probably win the title game, but they'll be a 2-loss team. Army's lost 1 game. Obviously, it was not as close as Boise's loss to Oregon, but Army has to go play in the AAC championship, right, against Tulane. And then, after winning the conference, have to go play Navy. So, they win the conference, then they got to go play Navy. That's going to be interesting. Very strange situation now with the realignment. Navy could be spoiler, of course, but I really would love to see Army in as well. Army and Boise in would be sick, honestly.
Yeah, that would be.
If the SEC keeps doing what it's doing to itself, it might happen. The way we're going.
Jake, there's a statement I made a bunch of times this fall, and I don't remember if you have weighed in on whether or not you agree with this. So I want to give you the opportunity.
Guess we'll find out.
When I say the SEC stinks this year, do you agree with that, or do you think that I'm too biased? Do you think the SEC stinks
I
this
think
year?
they stink relative to expectations.
Like obviously they don't stink compared to like obviously the Big 12 has been beating itself up, and the ACC has been
I don't
really top heavy.
Yeah. Which I don't know how top notch the top heavy part is of that conference. So But I think relative to expectations, sure.
Would you agree that the two best teams in the SEC are Texas and Georgia?
Yes.
So take Texas and Georgia out. Take Oregon and Ohio State out. Who's better, the rest of the Big Ten or the rest of the SEC?
Oh, well, you know how I feel about Penn State. Yikes.
We got Penn State, Indiana, Washington, Iowa, Illinois.
That was tough. It was
Minnesota,
tough going to the
Nebraska.
next team after that.
Minnesota.
Ugh.
I think Minnesota, Nebraska might be a little scarier than say Iowa, Washington right now.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I don't know.
I think the
it's
middle of the
tight.
Big Ten would probably beat up the middle of the
I feel like
SEC.
I feel like if
who's,
Iowa,
who's the
if,
Penn State and Indiana of the SEC? It's Ole Miss and
well,
probably
let's
A&M.
see, who's fraud watch in the SEC.
Oh,
all the
Mizzou,
time.
Tennessee. Tennessee's fraud watch.
Tennessee is probably the Penn State of that conference. I don't know. A&M might fit there too.
Dude, I think Penn State would dog walk Tennessee. I don't think that's close.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think Tennessee's very good. I've made that clear. I do think I will say this. I do think, in my opinion, the three best teams in college football currently are Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia, personally. I think the Georgia that we saw against Tennessee, the second half Georgia we saw against Bama, the Georgia that said Texas, no, this isn't your conference to run, that Georgia is quite dangerous.
Yeah, but you named the only instances that version of Georgia has shown up. The whole rest of the year, they have been like barely surviving against mediocre teams.
And yet, I trust them over Notre Dame. I trust them over Penn State. Two teams on fraud watch all the time. I trust them over an Indiana team that I just haven't seen a lot out of other than this year. And then there's
I would
kind
take
of a
Georgia
fall-off.
over
Then it's a
Indiana
fall-off.
in a bowl game. I don't know if I would take Georgia
can't.
over. I don't think I would take Georgia over Notre Dame. I think that's a
Notre
really
Dame's
close match.
Such a fraud in these matchups all the time. I just can't get it out of my head. They consistently do this. This is who they are. Like, until proven otherwise. Notre Dame is like, we shouldn't have lost this game. We're going to be 10 or 11-1. And, we're a playoff team until we play Clemson or Alabama or whoever. And then we don't look like a playoff team. And
I thought they beat Clemson, didn't they?
No.
Oh no, that was
that was Lawrence carving them.
that was when DJ came in. Like his one good game ever in his career.
In the regular season, yeah. That's right. They beat them in Notre Dame with DJ. Shoot, yeah. But I just don't. Notre Dame, to me, they gotta prove it to me first. Otherwise, they will forever be on fraud watch. I will never get there until they get it done against somebody. And Penn State, I don't think Penn State counts. I'm not sure they even count. But it'd be a nice boost to the confidence, though. I can't get there. Notre Dame's got to show me it. Beating Boise State or Arizona State in the playoff also does not count. That doesn't count. Now, if they beat Kansas, current Kansas, that
actually, I know 100%. If Notre Dame beat Kansas in the playoffs this year, that would actually,
I would feel better.
Nobody outside of people who have watched Kansas play would be impressed.
Would ever
by
say
that.
this.
People who just box score watch would be like,
they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But this Kansas, the preseason Kansas that everybody thought was going to be the Kansas, this is them. That's the preseason rank in Kansas we've seen the last 3 weeks. Saying this is you have a better record, but this is my Big 12 again. I'm taking it. I'm taking this Big 12. You guys started to think you were gonna have multiple teams in the playoff. This is my Big 12. And again, they were a 56-yard field goal from beating Kansas State. They lost Arizona State by 4. Like they were what, 7 points away from beating the top 5 teams in the conference, and like retaking their place as that team in this. Like I said it last week, JJ, if you remember. I said, boy, especially if they beat Colorado, this season's going to haunt them for a long time.
Oh, no. I mean, like they are having the same season in a way that Rutgers is, of like a lost season where you had a fantastic roster and a shot at making the playoffs. Rutgers should have made the playoffs. And you look at Rutgers, it's like they were beating people to a pulp. Then half their team got horribly injured, and they dropped, 5 in a row, 6 in a row? And then they came back firing on all cylinders again. Played a really good game against your Illini this past week. And, you know, my heart goes out to Lance Leopold. My heart goes out to Greg Schiano. Like, these are lost seasons for these two guys. Absolutely.
UNLV is 2-0 against the Big 12. They beat Kansas. They beat Kansas.
Kansas, and who's the other one?
I don't. It might be Arizona. No, I can't think. But we've kind of lingered on this too long. But like Kansas losing to TCU and West Virginia and UNLV and like close losses to Illinois, Kansas State, and Arizona State. It's like, brother.
Imagine if you combined Kansas and Utah. And you took Utah's hot start and Kansas' hot finish. I mean, that's
a playoff team. Big 12 champs playoff team. Sure. It is, yeah. It's just I hate that for Kansas, man. But I'm glad that they're getting some validation of who they should have been, at least at the end of this. Like, yeah, we'll take down Iowa State. Yep, BYU, your undefeated season. See ya. Colorado, you thought you were going to be the Big 12 title game, didn't you? Like, they just I'm very proud of what Kansas has done at the end of it. Like, I don't know if it was like, that 6th loss of like, oh my gosh, we might not get to a bowl game, and they sat up in the chair. But guys, come out with that urgency next year.
The rest of the Big 12 is they're like that. Is that a Simpsons meme where the crowd has their, you know, hammers and baseball bats, and they're, you know, ready to run them out of town? Like that's Kansas right now. Absolutely dismantling the Big 12.
Yeah. They've ripped the foundation out these last 3 weeks. So
we're about to rename the Inside of You There Are Two Syracuse's tier, and to the Inside of You There Are Two Kansases.
Probably. And when Kansas has a good version of themselves, they're so far up, it's nuts.
Well, Jake, listen, my camera keeps dying.
Yeah.
It's a sign. We are almost at the 3-hour mark. I think it's time that we let the folks go. Listen, folks, appreciate you for tuning in. It's happened again. You've wasted another perfectly good evening. What's up?
Really quick, for those still commenting, I see Chris and Fred McFarley and Ayers Joy. Like, hang on to those, because I see LVN questions. I'll fire up a weekly cheddar on Friday if you'd like to get all these out as well. Okay, so make sure you bring those for that on Friday.
Nice slice of weekly cheddar to go along with your leftover turkey.
Yeah,
Jake.
Perfect.
Your family does turkey on Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Do you guys do like a turkey noodle soup on Friday? That's what we do at my house.
We do turkey sandwiches with mayo and sometimes the Hawaiian rolls, sometimes something else.
Oh man, so good.
So that's the way to do it. The turkey soup sounds interesting. Get some variety.
Yeah, we do get a big bag of egg noodles.
Okay.
Chop up some celery and carrots, and so you strip all the turkey off of the carcass.
Sure.
And you You let it stew in some chicken broth and those veggies with some onions, like all day
Sounds
long.
great. Yeah, that sounds.
And
really
then, I don't know, 45 minutes before you're ready to serve, you toss in a bunch of egg noodles and you just let the egg noodles cook in the soup.
good. Yeah, that sounds
And
really good.
it is to die for. It's the best. I actually, when I eat it, I then put some hot sauce on it as well. It's just like the last little touch that you need. But nothing wrong with turkey sandwiches too. Leftover turkey is the one good use for Miracle Whip in this world. I like Miracle Whip on my turkey sandwiches better than mayo.
There you go.
The rest of the time, just give me regular mayo. But, Miracle Whip with the turkey sandwiches, or with a turkey and Swiss roll up with Miracle Whip.
Ooh. Oh yeah. I like that. Well, there you go for the folks still listening, either here on YouTube or on the pod on Spotify, for 2 hours and 40 minutes to get some Thanksgiving talk at the end.
We have more listeners.
guys are the real ones
right now streaming us than we've had like for most of the night.
It's crazy.
We're still doing crazy numbers as we're about to hit hour number 3.
Yeah. It's nuts.
However, I'm losing my voice. It's time for me to go to bed.
It is time. It is time. Thank you guys, though. This was excellent, and we can't wait to see you guys again next week. Hopefully, after another Packers W at 9-3.
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, helping us tell the South to cram it, enjoying some good conversation about the 49ers beat down. Always a good time when you get the 49ers to beat down.
Yes.
On behalf of Jake Schyvinck, on behalf of myself, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And remember, in the words of the late, great Mr. Ed Policy, our patron saint here on this podcast, go, Pack, go.